Welcome back, welcome back, welcome back, East Baton Rouge Parish residents, taxpayers. We love you. We hope you had a great holiday. I'm going to go ahead and get this meeting started on this Thursday, January 11, 2024, for our special meeting. First things up is going to be invocation followed by Pledge of Allegiance. The call to order or invocation will be led by School Board Member Mark Ballou, and the Pledge of Allegiance will be led by School Board Member Patrick Martin.
Heavenly Father, we thank you for the many blessings in our lives. Your presence gives us comfort and strength. As we conduct the business of the school system tonight, please help us to do so with an open mindset. Guide our words and actions so that they are respectful and demonstrate our commitment to serve others. Remind us that we can tackle difficult tasks and accomplish our goals through humility, perseverance, and hard work. All this we ask in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next, we have our call to order. Madam Secretary.
District 2, President Lannis.
Present.
District 3, Vice President Powell Lewis.
Present.
District 1, Mr. Blue.
Here.
District 4, Ms. Stewart.
Present.
District 5, Mr. Lewis.
Present.
District 6, Mr. Russ.
Present.
District 7, Mr. Goday.
Present.
District 8, Ms. Chatelaine.
Here.
District 9, Mr. Martin.
Here.
We have a quorum.
All right. First item up for business is going to be the election of the East Baton Rouge Parish, East Baton Rouge Parish President, election of President of the East Baton Rouge Parish School Board. Second. No, I didn't ask for a second. I'm trying to find my sheet so I can tally score. Okay, I don't have one. All right, so we just go ahead and move forward. Can I, my tally sheet. That's okay. I could just keep it for now until you find it, April. So keep it moving right along. All right. Can I get a motion? Oh, I'm sorry. You got superintendent. My apologies.
All right. I will now open the floor for nominations for the office of Board President. Are there any nominations for the position of School Board President? Board members?
I nominate Darius Lannis.
All right. Darius Lannis.
I
Any
nominate
other nominations?
Carla Powell Lewis.
Okay. Ms. Lewis? Any other nominations?
1 second.
Move the nominations be closed.
Before you close,
Board Member Stewart?
That was actually to make the nomination.
Oh, okay. Board Member Lannis, President Lannis?
yes. While it has been an amazing pleasure serving this community, serving on behalf of this board over the course of the last year, watching our district grow in terms of scores, watching board members grow together, at least some of us start. What I can honestly tell you is tonight I'm going to remove my name out of nomination for a particular reason. Tonight's vote was already decided long before we came here. And that's not right on behalf of our community. This has been going on for quite some time, and I'm going to use a point of personal privilege to explain exactly what I'm talking about. At the last board meeting, my character was called into place because someone said that meetings were not had in terms of the superintendent's contract. And at that time, I said that was not right, and those were emphatic lies. Tonight, because we are in the spirit of transparency and accountability, these are the notes that were taken during that time at those meetings. Well, I met with you, School Board Member Nathan Russ, and we discussed several things. And if you look at the top of the notes, it says 90-day plan, scenario, board votes to reject superintendent renewal. So I say all this to say that there was already a plan in place by members around our community who come inside of our boardroom in disguise and act as though they are in the best interest or doing what's in the best interest for kids. That's not right. It's not right at all. Mr. Superintendent, I told you before, my hat goes off to you because you've done a lot of great things. Some things may not have always been right, but you know what? It was a pleasure serving on side of you as your president. Tonight, we have an opportunity to make history. An opportunity to make history. How so? There's never been a time inside of our community where 2 black women had the opportunity to serve at the head of this dais. Tonight, we can do that. For far too long, women have been oppressed. They have been pushed aside and never been given the opportunity. Just last year, we saw the same thing when school board member Ms. Shoshone Stewart nominated our vice president, Ms. Carla Powell-Lewis. And in doing so, history was made that night. There were black girls all around this community, not just black girls, but girls, period, who are always told that they cannot aspire to reach to the top. Tonight, we have an opportunity to do that. What I offer to you, Madam Vice President, is to do the right thing tonight. Because I know a meeting was had a week prior before the last meeting. And during that meeting, it was already discussed how the votes are going to be tallied up and broken down to select our next president and vice president. Several members were at that meeting. I was not at that meeting, nor were a few of my other members. But tonight, let's do the right thing. School Board Member Patrick Martin, you made comments to Vice President Carla Powell-Lewis months ago. During that time, you said that 2 blacks should not have served in leadership together. Now, I want to believe that in your heart, you didn't mean that. But what I've always been taught is that your actions speak louder than your words. Tonight, show where your heart is in front of this whole community. Set aside any ambitions that you have and place your vote in the hands of 2 women who have an opportunity to serve. Ms. Shoshone Stewart has never done to anybody on this board anything besides serve and serve proudly. And I ask you to do so. But what I can guess, ladies and gentlemen, is that that will not happen. Because as I told you before, there was already a concrete plan to dismantle and cause chaos amongst our board. For the first time over last year, we worked together on several different issues. But now all of a sudden, the division, the divisiveness has itched its way back inside of this boardroom. And it's not right. I didn't run for this seat 5 years ago to have to deal with things like this. I ran because I care about kids. Put petty differences aside. Tonight is not about airing out people's business or being messy, but it is about being transparent and being accountable for the decisions that you make. The community is watching. Everybody's eyes are open. Madam Vice President, I turn to you. When I met with you, you said that you would vote for Ms. Shoshone Stewart. You looked in her eyes and you said that you would vote for her. I'm asking that you do the right thing tonight because you know what? You don't have to do what they say. And I told you this today when we talked on the phone because you have the support of your community and the support of your board members to ensure that your presidency is an absolute success. And I also told you, look at the things that they're now saying about me. The same guy that helped to prop up an organization and build them to success where they can do what it is they're doing today. Now all of a sudden I'm to blame. And those people sit in the back of our room and they laugh as though it's a joke or it's a game. You see, you can't come inside of this dais and play around with kids and think that people are just simply gonna let that go. As I told you before, I'm enough without it and I'm okay. We're gonna continue to fight on behalf of kids. I just laid it at your footstep, Madam Vice President. Tonight you have an opportunity to make history and make our community proud, but most specifically, make young black girls proud and knowing that they can aspire to reach success the same way you did. I'll lead it at your footsteps. And on that, I close.
I will now entertain a motion to close nominations for board president on the said name. Board member Carla Powell. Okay. Can I get a second? Board member Patrick. All right. Are there any comments from the board? Are there any comments from the public? Seeing no comments, back to the board. All right, we will now close nominations on the said name, Board Member Carla Powell. Madam Secretary, please conduct the vote.
This is to close the nominations. Please vote. The motion carries.
For the office of president, the nominations for president, for Board Member Carla Powell to receive votes. They do call the votes. So will, Madam Secretary, please do a roll call.
District 1, Mr. Blue.
Ms. Powell Lewis.
District 2, Mr. Lannis.
Paul Lewis.
District 3, Ms. Powell Lewis.
Powell Lewis.
District 4, Ms. Stewart.
Abstain.
District 5, Mr. Lewis.
Excuse me. Powell Lewis.
District 6, Mr. Russ.
Powell Lewis.
District 7, Mr. Goday.
Powell Lewis.
District 8, Ms. Chatelain.
Powell Lewis.
District 9, Mr. Martin.
Powell Lewis.
Ms. Powell Lewis has 8 votes for presidency.
Congratulations, President Powell Lewis. So as I would say, Madam President, you have a choice. You can now do vice president, or I can do the vice president vote for you. Okay. Wait.
See, she needs to be sworn.
Oh, I'm sorry. You have to be sworn in, President, so we'll need you to.
Well, if she's not going to conduct the vote, we can wait until.
Want to wait till after? Let's wait
Go
after.
through the whole thing.
That'll work?
You can do the regular meeting.
Okay. All right. I will now open the floor for nominations for the office of Board Vice President. Are there any nominations for the position of School Board Vice President? Mr. Blue, Board Member Blue?
Nominate Mr. Martin.
Okay. Board Member Martin? Any other nominations?
I nominate Ms. Stewart.
All right. Board Member Stewart? Any other nominations? All right. Seeing no other nominations, I will now entertain a motion to close nominations for Board Vice President on the said name of Board Member Patrick Martin and Board Member Shoshone Stewart. Oh, yes. In the queue. Board. All right. President Lewis?
First, I would just like to say thank you to my colleagues who supported me in the election process. Also, I would like to say thank you to all of those who have been praying with me over the last month. I've shared with my family that this role has been more intense than child labor. In December, I casted a vote because I felt strongly about the lack of leadership that we have had in this district. I stated then that there was a level of chaos. My goal and my reasoning for running for president was so that we could see levels of transparency, that we would have a higher level of correspondence and communication with each other, that we would have structures in place, and that we would see work done that represented and reflected the initiatives and the priorities of all 9 of us on this board. I am a teacher. I did not know that Baton Rouge Alliance existed until I ran for office. I did not know that Stand for Children existed until about 6 months before I ran for office, when I served as one of their teacher lead candidates or advocates. I didn't know anything about the political side of that. I'm a teacher who has desired to be a voice for teachers and for District 3. What I have learned in this process is it's our Black people that's fighting against each other. It's our Black people that when I casted my vote, folks decided that they were going to hide behind emails with fake names and share all kinds of issues and falsities about me and about some of my other colleagues. If we want to be honest, let's be honest. If it were not for some people who work in the district, there are leadership meetings that I would never be invited to. If we're being honest. My reasoning for why I did not initially decide to support my colleague, Ms. Stewart, was because I didn't know who was behind this foolishness, but I did know that it was my Black people that was behind it. My people sending out emails about me. My people who are allowing Mr. Mike Goday to be able to be their token to go on and send out the emails to everybody. I didn't know who was behind it. It led me to a place where I did not trust African Americans, because those were the ones who came after me. Those were the ones who had things to say to me personally. Let's recollect, let's think back to December. That meeting was a hot mess. Now, moving forward, I did sit at TJ Ribs. As a matter of fact, I will say this, that I called meetings with all of my board members. I texted them and asked could I meet with each and every one of them. Why? Because that's what I do every month. I either text every one of them and ask their thoughts about what needs to happen in the next month, because that's the role of leadership. Or I call and check on them, or I ask, can we meet? So in the month of January, the beginning of a new year, I asked to meet with every one of my colleagues. When it was time for me to meet with my board president, we were supposed to sit and talk. When I get ready to talk to him and tell him about how excited I am about his scriptures he's posting on Facebook, and how excited I am about leading with him and how we have done and what we need to do moving forward, I look out the window and see Mr. Tremel Howard, my predecessor, and Ms. Shoshone Stewart walking in. I had talked about the fact that I wanted to support Patrick Martin. They presented the idea of Ms. Stewart serving with me, and I did say that I would support her. As I left out of there, I went to take my husband to the doctor, and I told my husband what happened. And that's when I processed that that was a planned meeting that I didn't know anything about, because I was only planning to meet with my board president. At that point, I felt ambushed. I try to be honest, and I try to be transparent, but I'm not greeted with that same transparency. I'm not greeted with that same honesty. Whether I serve as president, and I'm thankful that you guys have offered it to me, but whether I serve as president or don't serve as a school board member again, guess what I am? I'm still a District 3 representative. Even if I don't hold this role, I still live at 1852 Progress Road and don't care who knows it or stops by my house. I still have a 16-year-old in East Baton Rouge Parish Schools. And if I didn't serve, guess what? I can go and apply for a job and teach in East Baton Rouge Parish. So I still have a voice. I will not be bullied into anything. When I asked about people running for leadership, I asked every one of my colleagues. And if anyone showed interest, my statement was, what would you do within the first 30 days of your tenure as a leader? There was only one individual who gave me an answer, and that was Mr. Martin. I asked, would there be changes in governance structure? I asked, are there ideas about a retreat? I asked whether or not there was ideas about putting forth a calendar. Were there ideas about changing in how we correspond and communicate with each other? No one gave me an answer but Mr. Martin. If that makes me less of a black woman, guess what? I'm fine with that. We have to come correct. We have to come with information. We have to come with our ideas. We have to do that. Otherwise, what are we saying? We're just supporting people because they are the same color as us. I love this district and I will love it for the rest of my life, whether I serve or not. And I just want to say, for those of you who genuinely supported me, thank you. For those of you who did not, I'm so sorry.
Thank you. Next in the queue, we have.
Do we close already now? Oh, okay. All right. Comments?
Next up, we have school member Michael Godet.
Thank you. Wow, that's kind of big acts to follow here.
Just 1 minute, board member. Go ahead. I just want to check.
I don't have that we made a motion to close the floor.
We did not close on the VP
On the VP.
nominations.
I move we close on the vice president nomination.
And we need a second.
We haven't made the motion
We never
yet.
made that motion.
I
So,
move that we close the nominations for
okay,
vice president.
we have a motion on the floor and a second. Yep. Okay, Mr. Godet, you now have the floor.
Wait, we got to have a vote. No, it's my, that's right. Wow. That's some kind of acts to follow. I have seen many things over the, I guess this is my 8th year on the board. And I must say, I've never been more disappointed in our board than I am tonight. Not looking at one side or the other or anything like that, but just the divisiveness that has come out. And through all of this, there was one word I never heard spoken: the children. No one said a word about what does this mean to the children. We're talking about adult issues. And that's the kind of thing that happens when politics continues to get inserted into all of this. And it's on all sides. I'm not picking one side or the other. But we as a board should be ashamed of ourselves for where we are right now. And I really think part of that is a lot of outside influences are coming in and playing. I think there are people in this parish, in this district, that want power. They want power over who's going to be superintendent. They want power over what that superintendent does. They want power over what charter schools get voted in and which charter schools get voted out. And continuing to insert political considerations is embarrassing. And this embarrassment has started way back. This has gone on, I mean, you know, when this board was first elected, there were already people saying, you know, I got the votes to be president and vice president and all this kind of stuff before we had even been sworn in. That politics had been playing. And it continued. People on this very dais sit here and accused, or maybe not accused is not the right word, insinuated that others of us on the board had ethical issues because of the way we voted on a contract, when there was clearly no legal, ethical, or moral issue with anything about us voting on that contract. But again, what it does, all we're doing here tonight is lowering the view of our public over the ability of this school district to operate. If you had a child sitting out there watching the circus that just came on, and I blame all of us. Don't shake your head. I blame all of us. All of us. This has been a circus. And it's got to stop. It's got to stop. And everyone outside trying to pull strings, you've got to stop. We are a policy board. Part of the issue is we have too many board members here trying to tell the superintendent how to run the district. We shouldn't be sitting here debating on which software to buy or anything like that. If it's a reasonable software with the money's in the budget, and it's something like that, we have professional educators. Those are the kind of people that ought to be doing it. And we ought to be looking at it, does that fit into the overall scheme? Not sitting here debating because some teachers don't like this program or other teachers don't like this program. We have one superintendent. And the purpose of this board should be to, A, select the superintendent, and then B, to support the superintendent. Support the superintendent publicly, build the vision of this school district in the eyes of the people. And if we have disagreements with the superintendent, we have those disagreements privately. We don't come out here in public and throw all that around. And then after those private, if we don't like it, then it's our prerogative to get a new superintendent. But to go out and do our own surveys and sending out emails to folks going, what do you think of this? What do you think of doing that? All that does is undermine the power of the superintendent who's supposed to be running this district. We have to decide as a board, are we going to be a board or are we going to try to run the district from the board? Are we going to try to pass so many policies that nothing can happen without coming out and resorting to a policy, which I really believe is against Act 1? Or are we going to sit here and let the superintendent, whoever he or she may be, run it? But we have to all look ourselves in the face, because I don't believe we're putting kids first right now. I really, really, really don't think we're putting kids first. We're putting personal power, we're putting personal prestige, and we're putting our personal ideas of what might work best in there. We're not educators. We're not supposed to be trying to run the district. That's what we have a superintendent and a staff of people for. And none of you have ever run, and none of you out in the public probably, have ever run an organization with 6,000 employees. It isn't easy. It isn't easy. Things happen, and people talk about morale. I told Ms. Powell earlier this week, because I did meet with you, and we did have a very good discussion. You have 600 employees that are angry about something, and they can raise a lot of noise and cause a lot of chaos. That's 10% of the employees. Are you going to let 10% of the employees drive the district? So think about what you're doing here. Think about why you're here. And I'm going to be honest, Ms. Powell, I really don't like the fact that you're saying here, I'm going to represent the kids in District 3. You're here to represent all the kids in every district. Now, I know you were caught up in the time of the moment, and I know you do try to represent all the kids in the district. But I'm not sure everybody on this board tries to represent all the kids in the district. They should. I don't know how many people on this board have visited schools outside of their district and going and looking at the things that are going on outside of their district. Okay? And I'm going to say one thing. I probably shouldn't, but I'm going to say it anyway. And I love you to death. You're a great person. But sitting here putting this board through the chaos of what's going on with a 4-4 vote with a temporary appointee casting the deciding vote who is not running for the seat, I think is wrong. That is not a mandate for change. That is not a mandate driving something else. And it's nothing against you personally at all. I just don't think that is the right moral and ethical thing to have done, particularly when we're going to have an election in March, and that election in March will put that person in place to make that deciding vote. So I think people are around here thinking they have this mandate to go to a change. You don't have a mandate. It's 4-4-1, and the one's temporary. So be careful. Stop listening to all the politics. Start thinking a lot more about the kids. And I hope in a couple of months I can come to these board meetings and not be embarrassed by what I'm seeing. Thank you.
Still going. All right, I'll take myself out of the queue. Next up, we have School Member Shoshone Stewart.
Yes, I just wanted to comment because, of course, sitting here and my name being brought up several times, I want to just apologize to the district because that's not what we're here for. We're here, as my colleague said, to create policy and do what's best for the children. And this scene that's going on right now isn't something that me personally would like to be shown as. And so I am quite embarrassed that my name is being brought up in the drama that has taken place within the last couple of weeks or so. But I apologize to the district. This is not who I am. I hope that's not who my colleagues would like to be presented as. And I hope moving forward that we can get beyond this and this won't happen again. I apologize.
Next in the queue, we have Schoolwoman Nathan Russ.
Thank you. Since 3 or 4 times now I've been put on public trial by my fellow board members, I'd like to rebut some of these statements that have been made. First of all, Mr. Lannis, since you have your notes from our meeting, if you'd like to go ahead and enter that into evidence, take a snapshot and share that with the public. That was your agenda that we followed in that meeting. In that, no. You put that on paper and we sat down and talked about it.
Talked about it beforehand, right?
Nope.
So we didn't meet it. I'm sorry, I'm not going to do that. I apologize. No, let's continue. I'm sorry.
To continue, that meeting consisted of talking through scenarios if our superintendent was not able to stay as our superintendent and how we would navigate those issues. A conversation which I very much appreciated, which was full of very insightful discourse, considering really, both sides of every issue, and trying to be responsible stewards of our school district. I appreciated those meetings. I didn't expect those to be used against me and twisted and tried to be used to manipulate a conversation, because I called you out in a meeting for not transparently discussing our superintendent's contract terms with the entire board, which factually we have not. At no point did you and I ever discuss terms of our superintendent's contract. In fact, the only conversation that we ever had to do with that topic was about the fact that we shouldn't be discussing terms at that point and how inappropriate it was to discuss that at that juncture. So if you want to twist and manipulate my words and try to lead the public to believe that I'm a liar, good luck with that, but I know the facts. And you got your own notes that you can share with the public about what was actually talked about, since you want to throw that out into the public. Thank you. Mr. Goday continues to harp on the fact that I brought up ethical concerns about a contract that the district pays for by an organization that has a political arm in this community. And I never once indicated that that was illegal or that it should be brought before the Board of Ethics. I used the term unethical or a question about the ethics, which does not carry a legal term or a legal definition. It is in the context of a moral responsibility. And that is the context in which I had that discussion. You can go back and watch the meeting, and I never said it was against the law or that anybody would break a state ethics code. But Mr. Gode wants to try to make that about me, insinuating that my fellow board members were conducting illegal votes, or that they would be somehow breaking a code of the code of ethics and implying that I'm using it to throw mud. No, I had genuine ethical qualms with that, and I would have continued to bring that up had I been at the next meeting if it was possible. That's my piece on that. I want to point out to the public that what is going on in this community is that there are members of our community and members of the board that are just flat out pissed off that we're not doing what they want. And when they fail to succeed in their manipulations, in their tactics, and their pushiness, and their strong arming to get members of this board to do what they want to turn around and call us bought and sold and tell us that we are influenced by outside influences in this community. I have many partners in this community that I trust to do this work because this is hard work. It takes a lot of people to make the decisions that we have to make on this dais. And I'm not afraid to talk about who those people are and who I trust, because they're good people that care about kids. And they don't tell me what to do. You know, that's the funny thing, is that people have this idea around politics that everybody gets marching orders. And I hope that that's not true in any part of this community, but it's not true in mine. I've never had anybody call me up besides a voter and tell me how to vote on an item. Besides a parent that have called me up and said, you need to do this because this is how it affects my family. Not an interest group, not a chamber, not a employee, not anything else. I listen to what my constituents say, our families and our kids. And the people that aren't getting their way up here on this dais want to manipulate and twist you into believing that because we won't do what they want, that we're the ones that are compromised. But let's think about who are acting like adults in the room and leave it at that. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. Next in the queue, we have School Member Patrick Martin.
Thank you. I want to quickly address one point that Mr. Gode made about my colleague, Ms. Chatelaine, who was sworn to take an oath, just like every other board member on this dais, to do what they believed to be in the best interest of the children. Neither Ms. Chatelaine, nor I, nor anybody else that voted against the superintendent's contract renewal said, hey, let's vote on this on January. Others did that. Others who thought that they could get 5 votes for the contract renewal. Now, after that, Mr. Gode says, well, that shouldn't really count because Ms. Chatelaine's opinion as a board member, taking an oath to fulfill the duties of a school board member, shouldn't really be allowed to vote on that. We could have waited. They could have waited to bring this up until after the special election. They thought they had the votes and they didn't. Now, the easiest thing in the world to do in politics is to question somebody's motives, to dismiss their arguments, to dismiss their rational debate as being motivated by politics. Politics is really just everybody talking with each other, trying to figure out what's the right thing to do in any given circumstance. And yeah, there's an ugly side to politics. I've been in the state a long time, and I've seen some ugly side of politics. But one thing I've never done since I took an oath to serve on this board is to question the motives of any other board member. I have no doubt that as strongly a disagreement as I have with President Lannis right now, that his motivation at his heart is what he believes to be in the best interest of the children. I see things very differently than he does right now, but I know that that's why he's here. I know that my colleague, Ms. Stewart, is motivated by the best interests of the children. That's why she's on this board. None of us, I don't think, ran for this board because we thought it was going to be a rose garden. Everybody I ever talked to said school board is one of the worst jobs in politics. Because people are passionate about their children. And we all, and I was caught on mic with my passions running away with me one time, right? Mr. Goday, he and I don't see eye to eye on a lot of issues, and honestly haven't since the day I got elected. But I know, absolutely certain, that he is motivated by what he believes to be in the best interests of the children. He's not in this for himself. Ms. Stewart's not in this for herself. Mr. Landis is not in this for himself. I'm certainly not in this for myself. It's too easy to dismiss reasonable, if passionate, debate by dismissing any opposing view as motivated by politics or self-interest. I haven't questioned anybody else's motives, and I hope I never will. And with that, I'd like us to hopefully get back to the business of talking about what is best for the children. Thank you.
Thank you, School Board Member Martin. And I'm going to be last, and I won't be long at all. When you decide to run for these types of seats, you do so with motive to be honest, to bring integrity and professionalism. But when you put out false information, it has to be clarified, especially when you do so and you address the community as a whole. I'm not even saying anything. I'm not trying to throw any dirt on you, Mr. Russ. But the truth is the truth. We met on 3 occasions, one at Community Coffee, one at Eliza's. We had a lot of conversations, and you're right, it was a really thoughtful conversation. But the interesting thing was the way that you chose to approach that situation, understanding and without giving context, complete context to the situation. And when you put certain things out there in the universe, you can't take them back once you say them. And that's how I was addressing that situation. You, Mr. Martin, I've had several interactions with you. As I said before, I don't think that was your heart. Maybe it came out the wrong way. Ms. Powell, even with everything that I said, I told you from the beginning, when we first took office together, I wanted to see you inspire to get inside of this seat. I told you that. Even with everything that was said tonight, I still voted for you because I do think that you're an incredible person, and I do think that you have your own way of thinking. What I can tell you, though, emphatically, is that I, nor Ms. Stewart, because she had a conversation with me about that, had anything to do with any personal attacks that was thrown towards you. I told you I would never play with your livelihood because you are a mother, because you are a teacher, and because you are a public figure. I told you that. Thank you. I just wanted the record to be clean before we close this out and saying that I want us to be transparent and hold everybody accountable moving forward. That's the only thing that I can offer you guys in my next 3 years serving on this board, that I promise you from here on out, any meetings that are taking place, any town halls, you will know every single inch and detail of what takes place. Because there's so much information and there's so much stuff that you all cannot see because you are not in a position to see it. And I just want you to know that it's going to be revealed in due time. Thank you.
Any other comments from the board? Board Member Lewis?
Really quick, everybody in this room that will leave here tonight, when you leave, you're going to be looking through your windshield of your car, not the rearview mirror. The rearview mirror is small for a purpose, for a reason. You can't drive looking in your rearview mirror. Let's look through the windshield and let's move forward. Because when you look through your rearview mirror, you see what you just passed. And it's small and it's insignificant. Because what's in front of you is what matters. So let's, almost put my coaching hat on. Let's get out of the rearview mirror and look through the windshield of what we've got to do. Plain and simple. Plain and simple. I was listening to a song by a famous philosopher last night, Jimmy Buffett. And he was talking about changes in attitudes and changes in latitude. And you can't live looking over your shoulder. So let's quit looking over our shoulder and move forward. By any means necessary. A quote from another great philosopher. Thank you.
Any other comments from the board? All right, we will now go to the public. First card up is Ms. Storm Matthews.
Thank you. I do hope that with the vice president vote that you all okay, sorry, I'm a little slower tonight. I just came out of the recovery room. So that you all do take into account those individuals who spend their time preparing for the meetings, that you all think about those individuals who are active on the board, and not those individuals who don't visit schools, who don't contact their constituents, who don't actively take care of the business of this board and the business of this district. Because there are some individuals who are very, very active and very diligent with their time and their effort and what they do for this district. And there are other individuals who do not respond to constituents at all and have been to their schools one time this entire school year. And so I hope that you all do look to the person who is very active in the board and is constantly trying to improve our district, and not an individual who has only been to each of their schools one single time this entire school year. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ms. Matthews. Next comment, Mr. James Finney.
Thank you. I support the motion to close nominations because I think you have two nominees who clearly represent a choice, and I think you need to decide among those two who is more likely to follow the mantra that you work for the voters and the superintendent works for you, and pushes for full transparency and accountability, and moves the board's agenda from being reactive to being proactive, where you're actually setting policies and then instructing the administration to determine how to follow your policy leads. And I won't state who my preference is, but I think there's a clear choice, and I wish you luck, and congratulations, President-elect Lewis. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Finney. Next comment is Tramel Howard.
Greetings to Dr. Narcisse, newly elected Board President Powell, former elected President Lannis. This is my first time addressing you guys since I left this board. My name is Tremel Howard, address 9020 Poy Fair, New Orleans, Louisiana. I wasn't going to say anything when I came here tonight. I really came because I wanted to see what direction our district was headed in. Since I left this board, I have been in a position of working across this country to navigate spaces that are creating equitable outcomes for kids across the country to ensure that Black and brown students, specifically students that look like me, are getting the best and brightest opportunities as it relates to their education. But Ms. Powell-Lewis wanted to address a direct comment to me, so I feel like it is necessary that I respond to that comment. What Ms. Powell-Lewis failed to tell you guys when she talked about an ambush was that the thing that I wanted to Ms. Powell-Lewis to be very clear about on the day that we had that meeting at TJ Ribs was that I was disappointed that I turned my legacy over to her. The reason that I was disappointed is because when I sat in that seat for 4 years, I put students first. I listened, and I put students first. Every decision I made while I was on this board, I was able to sleep at night. I didn't have people calling me, telling me not to meet with my current president or other members of my board. Ms. Powell-Lewis, how dare you? I sat in this seat for 4 years and I turned my legacy over to you because I believed in you. You have not acted in any manner that supports the legacy that was that I had when I was on this board. I looked in your eyes and told you that you have to make tough decisions as a board member, and the decisions that you have to make should be yours, and the decisions that you make should be yours in the best interest of kids. You failed to mention a lot of things that you said in that night, but the fact that I ambushed you. I believed in you as Powell-Lewis, and I believe that today you would do the right thing for kids. It is very clear that the people sitting at this dais right now are not the people in control of what's happening in East Baton Rouge Parish School Bureau. You have the opportunity to take control by supporting your fellow sister in this thing. And I hope you do the right thing, because another day will come when you will have to get elected. Have a great day.
All right, those are all the comment cards. All right, we will now go back to the board. Any other comments?
Emily? Oh, sorry.
Okay.
Comment card.
All right, no more comment cards. All right, now we will go back to the board. Board Member Chatelain.
I'd just like a request that my understanding of being on this board is that no personal attacks are supposed to happen. So maybe we could stick to that. Thank you.
All right, Board Member Godet.
Thank you. I got to follow up after Mr. Lewis, Coach, gave his eloquent quotes. 3 things come to my mind. One, I wish this board that this is the worst day we ever have from now on and going forward. Secondly, I don't know if you guys are all too young, but we had a labor secretary named Robert Reich. And I don't know if any of you remember him, but he was a very witty man, and I heard him speak. And he talked about politics. And he goes, you have to remember what is the etymology, the root word around politics. And he goes, it's poly, meaning many, and ticks, meaning blood-sucking insects. And so be careful as we go through all of this. And lastly, I'll go back to Jimmy Buffett.
A Southern Miss alumni.
A Southern Miss alumni. I think he spent the best 4 years of his sophomore, being a sophomore at Southern Miss was the best 4 years of his life, was what I heard. But one of the best quotes I loved was, if we couldn't laugh, we would all go insane. So I think we need to turn down the temperature, refocus on kids, and really try to do the right things. I agree with Coach, you got to drive looking out through the windshield. You can't drive through looking out the rear view mirror. But driving also requires a great deal of trust. You trust that when you come up to a stop sign that the other guy is going to also stop. You trust that when the light turns green, there won't be someone running the red light. There's all these things while you're looking out of the windshield. There is a need for trust. So I hope tonight can be the low point, and we start building from this point going forward. Thank you.
All right, any other comments from the board? All right, we will now close nominations on the said names, Board Member Stewart and Board Member Martin, and conduct a roll call vote. At this time, Madam Secretary, please call the vote.
Point of information, and I'm assuming that I'm using the right term. Okay. May I be considered as the final vote?
She's president, she can,
Yes.
She ain't been sworn in yet.
The answer is yes, Ms. Powell Lewis.
Not to stop you, I'm just saying.
Well, I guess the point is she hasn't been sworn in to be officially president. You'd have to swear you in to do that. Is that something you want to do now?
Sure.
Okay.
Are we allowed to have family to join us for this process? Okay, I would love to have my sister, Miss Claudia Milton, to join me for the swearing in.
Gwen, you want to do it in the middle? All right.
1 second. Madam President, I now pass you the gavel.
Madam Secretary, please call the vote.
all right, this is to close the nominations for VP. Please vote.
No.
Okay.
No, this is just a close.
Okay.
Oh, it just went up. It just popped up. The motion carries. District 1, Mr. Blue.
Mr. Martin.
District 2, Mr. Lannis.
Stewart.
District 4, Ms. Stewart.
Stewart.
District 5, Mr. Lewis.
Martin.
District 6, Mr. Russ.
Mr. Martin.
District 7, Mr. Gode.
Stewart.
District 8, Ms. Chatelain.
Mr. Martin.
District 9, Mr. Martin.
Mr. Martin.
District 3, President Powell Lewis.
Stewart.
That is 5 for Mr. Martin and 4 for Ms. Stewart.
All right. So for the office of Vice President, Vice President Martin has received 5 votes. The 2003 Vice President of the East Baton Rouge Parish School Board. 24. Oh, sorry, 24 is Board Member Martin. Congratulations. Will be sworn in, Vice President Martin. Go to the middle.
Congratulations, Mr. Martin. If we will call, if my colleagues agree, if we can go into a 5-minute recess just to get shuffled around here. Thank you.
Yeah, the applicants. Wait.
My colleagues, we will be starting in 2 minutes, so I hope everyone can make their way back to their seat. Okay, calling our meeting back to order. We're now to item 3 on our agenda. Okay, B3, which is items for consideration. Okay. We don't have a quorum just yet.
We got quorum.
Okay. All right. Is it safe to begin, Madam Secretary? Okay. All right, so item 3, Community School for Apprenticeship, CSAL Elementary Contract Extension. Consideration of a request for the approval of a 1-year charter contract extension between the East Baton Rouge Parish School Board and Community School for Apprenticeship, CSAL Elementary. Is there a motion? It has been moved by Mr. Ballou. Is there a second? Is there a second for item 3? Okay, it has been seconded by Mr. Lewis. Comments from the board?
Yeah, 5-minute presentation.
Okay, all right. Would we like to take the presentation now?
Yes, for 5 minutes.
Okay, all right. So, Dr. Narcisse.
I'll call up our Deputy Chief of Policy, Ms. Vicki Silas, for a 5-minute presentation, and as well as our...
Good evening, President Powell Lewis, Vice President Martin, esteemed board members, and Superintendent Narcisse. We would like to offer for discussion and recommendations to consider an extension for CSAL Elementary. Ms. Kim Boudreau is our portfolio manager over charter schools, and she will be giving you your 5-minute presentation.
Good evening. First up, we have CSAL Elementary, who is seeking your support and approval for a 4-year extension. Yeah, you can go on that side. Okay, the 6 keys to success is a part of our district's strategic goals. And as a type 1 charter, the first key that we see that access to quality education is the key that we'll be focusing on with both of these tonight, in that this is clearly an expectation of all schools to provide quality education. All right, Bulletin 126 explains what a charter extension is, and it says that each charter school should be reviewed by its chartering authority after the completion of its 3rd year of operation. So our school, CSAL, is in its 4th year after its 3rd and is seeking that extension. Next up, we see that we have our EBR charter policies outline extension process. This is a process that the charter office followed in order to collect the data that you'll see momentarily to present for consideration. So CSAL Elementary is at 1651 Choctaw Drive. That's Principal Andrea Mathis. It serves grades K through 5, and its current enrollment is 279 students. There are 3 categories whereby which data is collected. There are indicators that fall under each of those categories, and when those expectations are followed, it's documented, and you'll see that shortly in each slide. Our first category is our academics. If you look, you'll see that CSAL currently has a letter grade of a C, a 66.7 C. Last year, they were 61.5C overall letter grade, which places them in the category of meets most of the expectations for the academic category. The next area is the financial performance expectations for the school. And there are 4 indicators there. And you'll see that CSAL met all of those expectations for the financial category for this last school year. And then our last area for consideration is organizational performance. There are 19 indicators in this category. On the next slide, you'll see how they perform throughout those 19 categories. Please note that the first 2, the economically disadvantaged and the students with disability percentage, has not yet been released from the state. So we actually took the total percentage out of 17 instead of 19 indicators. We did not count those 2 because we're still waiting on that to be released. And if you look at the final column, CSAL has all greens, which means that they met all of the expectations in all 17 of the available categories. You can keep going, which gives them meets all expectations in that category as well. So on the last slide, you'll see that CSAL in the 3 categories that we just spoke of, the academic performance, they met most by having a letter grade of a C. The financial performance, they met all by having all 4 indicators met. And in the organizational, they had a 17 out of 17, meeting all organizational performance metrics. So based on the East Baton Rouge Parish Charter Policy, CSAL Elementary has met the conditions for an extension.
Okay, thank you. All right, Dr. Narcisse, did you have any other comments in regards? Okay. All right, so then we will now turn to comments from the board. Yes, we do. It has been moved by Mr. Ballou and seconded by Mr. Lewis. Okay. Okay, all right. Okay, Mr. Gode.
Yes, Ms. Silas, I have a couple of quick questions for you. I guess it's you. It never says in any of this. It says it meets, but how long are we renewing this charter for? Is this the 1-year extension after the original 3?
So this is for an extension. This school originally opened in 2020, so they are currently up for an extension. This is not a renewal.
Okay, this is an extension,
yes, sir.
a 1-year extension or a
Yes, sir.
2-year extension?
This is an extension for 1 year because they're in the 4th year, as opposed to the 3rd year when they originally were supposed to receive the
Got
extension.
it, okay.
Yes, sir.
So this is a 1-year extension. The other thing I'd like to comment, and I think I would like to see us change or add a few little things as we go through in our measurements on the metrics. One is on the financial data. I think we ought to, because this is really viewed with a view of how well they're reporting to us, particularly at the end of the year. But I think we ought to add something about here that their budgets are being duly passed and duly posted. And I think somewhere in here, whether it be operational or whatever, that they are abiding by all, and I'm not accusing them of not, I'm just saying in general, I think we need to add these, that all open meeting requirements are being met with the posting of agendas, the posting of minutes, and those sorts of things. Because I've had comments coming back from some people of the public that they can't find where the charter school board meetings are or when they are, and they're not following the public notice requirements, because technically they have to follow exactly the same requirements that we have to require here as a school board. And that goes around their budgets, it goes around their meetings, open meeting law, their meetings and their minutes. So can we somewhere put that into how we go about judging these? Because I'd like to see us make sure we have proof that yes, they did post these, yes, these have been done, and things like that. And again, this is nothing on CSAL. This is a general comment.
Yes, sir. So the metric that you actually see is in our charter policies, but what we will do is collect that as qualitative data for you to use in your analysis.
Yes, because I didn't see some of that in the charter policy.
Right. Yes, sir. So we can use that.
Okay, thank you very much. That's all I had.
Thank you.
Mr. Martin.
Silence.
Thank you, President Powell Lewis. Mr. Goday's comments actually, struck an idea with me. Is that perhaps, and maybe this is being done already, Ms. Eilis, you let me know, as a service to the public, maybe we could work with the charter operators to also to have them give us notice of the public meetings, right? They have to give notice to the public, and then we could have a dedicated web page where, just as we're informing the public of our meetings, we're also helping to inform the public of each of those charter school meetings.
So
Is that
to
something we
address
could
that,
do
they
or
do
could look at?
submit their charter calendars to us. We collect that data, but throughout the course, they may change dates and things like that. But Ms. Boudreaux's office does collect all of that information. And it is evidenced in the organizational chart. If you go to the indicator on where it says board adheres to state policies regarding to governance and compliance, that's where they capture that information regarding board meetings and things on that particular indicator.
Thank you. I'm suggesting in addition to that maybe we could have a page on our website that advertises, 24 hours ahead of time or whatever, hey, this charter board is meeting at this date at this time. Since they have to post that notice anyway, let's just say, hey, give it to Ms. Boudreaux, and Ms. Boudreaux works with IT or whatever to get that posted. That may be too much work, but it's just an idea to toss out. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no further comments from the board, we will now turn to comments from the public. Okay. First is Mr. Caleb Holmes.
Thank you, Madam President. And congratulations to the new president and vice president of the board. Going to be quick. Just want to make sure that we should recognize that our public schools, our true public schools, do require attention and care. Usually around education there is, especially tonight, the contentious night we had a few minutes ago, there usually is an agenda afoot, and the true agenda is there is an attack on public education. We've already seen it in our state down in New Orleans. We're seeing it here in Baton Rouge. But more importantly, we're seeing it across the entire country. Public education is under attack. And what I want to make clear is that do charter schools fill a niche? Sure. That niche is very, 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 very small. More than anything, we need to direct our attention back to our public schools and transform them into true public community schools. So more than anything, I want to make sure that the board understands that that is where we should be going in the new year. We have a new board. We have a new board president. We have a new board vice president. Hopefully some new policies and personnel. Let's go in a new direction and support our public schools first. Public schools. Not public charter. Not private. Public. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Fanning.
Thank you. First, I saw nothing in the presentation that suggested there is a reason to do this in a special meeting. I think you should defer your final decision to the regular meeting in 2 weeks. I think there is an issue with timing on the new charter applications. They should have been presented to you last month for full consideration, and that didn't happen. I don't see any evidence that suggests there's urgency with the extension or the renewal. So I would encourage you to defer this to the regular meeting and collect some more data. Like, for example, does having this school in existence actually improve the outcome for students? The rubric that is used is fairly hard to fail. It's designed by charter advocates in order so that all charters get extended, renewed, and most of them get approved in the first place, and that's an issue. Charters should only exist if they improve the educational climate. Furthermore, there should be something in the contract that actually has consequences when the board breaks the law, which this board has. You can quibble about whether it's a meaningful break if they approve a new member and that wasn't on the published agenda and they didn't actually vote to change the agenda. This board has done that. They have had to cancel a meeting at the last minute because they forgot to post it and somebody asked them about it. There should be consequences. They are a public board responsible for spending a lot of the public's money, even if it's privately operated, and they should be held accountable, and when they screw up, there should be consequences so that they are less likely to screw up. Furthermore, you need to look very hard at how many students are transferring out after October 1st. I don't know. This was not one of the schools I looked at. It's alarming for another group of schools. You need to look at whether they're satisfying their contract with regard to economic disadvantage. I'm not sure the answer, but I know for certain that they are failing to meet the standard for special ed, and yet it's been recommended that they get to keep breaking that. There are no consequences when charter schools screw up, and that needs to change. If you give them a one-year extension, it needs to be clear what they have 1 year to fix, or don't renew them. And since nobody else seems willing to mention it, Brown versus Board of Ed is still the law. That school in a community that is roughly half white and half black has, if I remember correctly, 9 non-black students out of several hundred. Think about whether that is a good solution to the problems that we face in this community. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no further public comment, we will now return to comments from the board. And I have entered into the queue. I just wanted to know if we could provide an answer for Dr. Finney in regards to what has constituted us having this as a part of the special meeting.
Yes, President Powell, you want to share on why we have to do the approval now?
So, according to state law, we have to approve or deny the charter applications, which is January the 19th. So we also had to do the extensions and renewals. And so at one time, we decided to bring it all to you so that you don't have to come back and revisit those at another date. So that's why we put them all together. And then it was selected as a special meeting because of the deadline on January the 19th. That was the only reason.
Thank you. Okay, seeing no further comments from the board, we will now entertain a vote.
Please vote. The motion carries.
Thank you. Item 4, Inspire Charter Academy contract renewal. Consideration of a request for the subsequent contract renewal with Inspire Charter Academy. Is there a motion? Okay, it has been moved by Mr. Lannis. It has been seconded by Mr. Lewis. Is there a presentation for this one as well?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, President Powell Lewis. Ms. Silas.
Let's move it on its own. Right. Okay. Okay. All right, our second school, Inspire, is of course seeking a renewal for your consideration. And a renewal is a little different in that they actually are beyond their 5th year of operation. And they're looking for a 3-year renewal based on the process that's outlined in EBR's policy. According to EBR's policy, schools that have a current letter grade of A or A can request for 5 years with additional years as an option. B, schools can request 4 years with additional years as an option with meeting certain criteria. And then a school of a C can request 3 years with no additional years as an option. Inspire Charter Academy serves grades K through 8 and the current enrollment is 630 students, and principal at the school is Miss Adrienne Singleton. We're following the same three categories: the academic, the financial, and the organizational. First, looking at Inspire's academic performance, their 2023 spring letter grade was a C. Their school performance percentage was a 70.6, or their score, and this constitutes them meeting most and qualifying for a 3-year based on our policy. The second category is the financials, and there are 4 indicators there. Inspire met 3 of the 4, the last one being a timely submission of the budget. They did submit the budget, they just not submitted by the deadline, so that kind of gave them a ding for that last category, but it still let them fall into the category of meeting most of the expectations for our financials. And the last indicator was the organizational, same process. There was 19 indicators overall. The first 2, the economically disadvantaged and the students with disabilities for this year, have not yet been released from the state. So we took it out of 17 categories, and Inspire met all 6 of 16 and not one. The one that they did not meet was re-enrollment rate, which is expected to be 80%, and their re-enrollment rate was 76.14. And we can go through the rest of the slides, and you'll see all greens there, which leads us to our final slide, which indicates their overall academic performance of a 70.6 and a letter grade of a C, has them falling into the category of meeting most expectations for academics. For the financial, 75%, which makes them a meet most as well, and organization at 94% is a meet most, which, based on our policy, Inspire Charter Academy has met the conditions for a 3-year renewal.
Thank you. Comments from the board? Mr. Martin.
Thank you, President Powell. Ms. Alice, Ms. Boudreaux, first I want to compliment you on the report, the formatting. You know, I had a few complaints last year. What I've seen in these have been a marked improvement, and I appreciate the hard work that you and your team have put in on that, and I just wanted to say thank you for that. And then I just had a quick question in terms of the budget. How late were they submitting the budget?
So the budget was due in September, and we received the budget in December.
Okay. It's a little late, but as you say, meets most expectations, so I think that's good. Okay, and I'm sure they'll do better next year. Principals in the audience going, yes, yes. All right. Thank you very much. That's all I have.
Thank you. Mr. Gode.
Yes, thank you. Just for completeness of information, I heard Mr. Finney's question. I don't know if he's sitting in the room or not, but I did ask for that information, and it was distributed to the board. Just to go back to CSAL Elementary, since we're doing that, they have had 4 students transfer out of CSAL since October 1 count. Where that happened. Oh, sorry about that. Where that happened, and let's see, CSAL Elementary. I should have put on my glasses, shouldn't I? 1 of them went to another charter school, and 3 of them, we don't know where they went, so they might have moved out of town or whatever. So that's a very minimal number. As it relates to Inspire, with the numbers I have is that Inspire had 43 students move out after October 1 count. 16 went to EBR, 5 went to other charter schools, and 22 are unknown, meaning they could have gone to private school, could have gone to type 2 charter, they could have moved out of Baton Rouge. And so those are the numbers for the schools that we're talking about here. And those are the numbers that, I hope we're going to get continually as we come up with these things, because that is something we need to be looking at. I think it's also important to look at enrollment, because, we talk a lot about choice. And one of the things that I think people forget about is that we have roughly 75% or some type number of parents choosing to be in traditional schools. So when we talk about choice, choice is more than just charter schools. And so when I look at Inspire and look at their, we talked about their re-enrollment rate, but Inspire this year has 659 students, and last year they had 594. And that is without adding a grade level. So they've, if I'm looking, 650, I'm sorry, yeah, 594 to 659 without adding a grade level. Man, those numbers don't look right. But that's the number that's coming up here. So they are maintaining their enrollment. They are growing. So it looks like parents are making that choice for those students. I will support the extension of the contract.
Thank you. Seeing no further comments from the board, we will now turn to comments from the public. Ms. Matthews.
Thank you. Board Member Gode, I really appreciate that information because that was absolutely one of my comments. I feel like since they don't meet their re-enrollment criteria and the fact that they were late with the budget, I feel like you should not renew them for this particular renewal. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Fanning.
Thank you. It would appear that the standard for continuing to take public money to operate privately controlled schools is good enough. Meets most expectations across the board for an organization that has had several years to figure out how to do it right. Why don't we have some higher standards? I don't think you should renew this school. If you do, the school should have to come here in 2 weeks to defend exactly why it is that they can't meet the standards that are set for them. I mean, and it sounds like, unlike a lot of charter schools that do this right, 43 students since October 1st looks really suspicious. Not as outrageous as idea, but 43 is a lot of students to slough off between October 1st and early January. October 1st is important because they've already gotten paid to educate those students for half a year, and now they're gone. I don't think you should renew this school. The re-enrollment is awful. They can't get their budget done on time. They have also gone halfway through a meeting only to be informed that they did not notice the meeting correctly, and they had to abandon that meeting, which wouldn't have happened if they hadn't been told. They've had trouble having a complete board. To somebody's point earlier, whether these charter boards share their posted meeting calendars or not doesn't really matter, because they tend to cancel those meetings, and then poof, you find out later there was a meeting that was announced a day ahead and has already happened before anybody noticed. That has to stop. Because this is a renewal, not an extension, there's a need for a new contract. This charter board has operated in the past without benefit of a contract, just like BASIS is at the moment, unless it's been signed in the last week, just like IDEA is, unless they've signed their contract in the last week. Likewise, Emerge and IDEA, 4 organizations that don't have contracts. That can't keep happening. So I would encourage the maker of the motion to change this so that the contract, once it's negotiated, must come back for board approval. And furthermore, that if there isn't a signed contract on June 30th, your approval to renew the contract is voided. You cannot let charter schools continue to operate without contracts. I have a big problem with that. I would hope you do too. So I would encourage you to deny the renewal now, but if you don't, put conditions on it that mean something and have teeth. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Seeing no further comments from the public, we will now return to comments from the board. Okay. Okay. All right, seeing none, we will now entertain a vote.
Please vote. The motion carries.
Thank you. Item 5, Charter School Application, Louisiana Academy of Production, LAP. Discussion, consideration of the Louisiana Academy of Production, LAP application and related matters. Is there a motion? Okay, it has been moved by Mr. Lannis. Is there a second?
President.
Okay, it has been seconded by Ms.
President, I'm sorry, you want me to say it? Yeah, the motion should be either to accept or deny the application, just to make sure we get the language correct.
Okay, all right. Okay, so the motion should be to accept the application. Okay, and Mr. Lannis, you are agreeing to that, okay? All right, so.
Accept or deny.
Accept or deny,
Right.
okay.
No, it's to accept the recommendation.
To deny.
Recommendation is to deny the application.
Okay. All right, so the recommendation is to deny the application. Is there a second to deny the application? Okay, it has been moved by Mr. Lannis and seconded by Ms. Stewart. Okay, comments from the board. Mr. Lannis.
Yes, thank you, Madam President. I just want to say that in my time serving as president, one of the things that was really concerning to me was the understanding of where we're going to be in terms of our budgetary constraints. And what I can tell you is that understanding the impacts that we have taken on over the course of the last few years, even under the recommendation of the superintendent not to approve charters in that moment, we still did so. And because of that, it has been detrimental to our budget. We're talking about a possible 60, and I'm not saying this to scare our general public, because I do feel as though we can work through any budgetary constraints. We've done it before under the leadership of Ms. Charlotte Placide, but we're talking about a $60 to possibly $70 million budget shortfall. And at this time now, we are not in a place where we can approve any charter schools. And that's not saying that we don't accept them. That's not to say that we are against them. But where we are right now, we're just simply not in that place. And if anybody's asking the question, well, what about the schools you just did? Those schools was one an extension, and the other one was a renewal based on the recommendations that were set before us. And they reached the criteria in order to get a renewal or an extension. But what I am typically telling our board and telling our community as a whole, we cannot continue at this time, understanding our budget, approve any charters. Our main focus has to be what we do for our direct schools and what we do for our employees and our students that are attending those direct run schools. And I'm not just talking about this year, because $60 to $70 million is a huge weight to lift off your shoulders when you still have to maintain your direct run schools. So I just caution everybody on this board that as we move forward, let's be very, very intentional about the way that we look at our budget and the way that we guard it to ensure that we can be successful with our direct run schools, our employees, and most specifically and most importantly, our kids. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Martin.
Thank you, President Powell-Lewis. I support the motion for a slightly different reason. Certainly, I'm concerned about the budget, but the philosophically different perspective on that. I think I understand that this group, this particular charter, believes that it's really beneficial to the program that they have in mind, that they be able to attract students from other parishes besides just East Baton Rouge. And if they have a charter from us, they can't do that. So they have to come here. We have to deny them, and then they can go to Bessie. And so I respect their wishes to try to do that, and so I support the motion to accept the recommendation to deny the application. I would encourage, I've had a few emails from stakeholders who expressed concern that this school may be duplicative of some efforts that we have in existing schools in this district. You know, it'll be in Bessie's hands whether to approve this school or not. I would encourage, and I know some of the folks who are promoting this school, they're good people. I would encourage them to not ignore the programs that we have in this district, and to look for every opportunity to continue to support the efforts of our traditional schools as well as their new endeavor. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Gode.
Yes, thank you. Again, I'm going to agree to deny for lots of reasons that my colleagues have talked about, but I also want to make the point, because we talk a lot about choice and the need for choice. And one of the things I want to make sure people understand is, I'm sorry, I'm a numbers guy. I always get numbers for everything, because I believe that without numbers, you're kind of shooting in the dark. But our charter enrollment from last year to this year on October 1st went up by 250 students. That's all. And it went up mainly because 296 went to a new school that was opened by Great Hearts, which is fine and dandy, no problem with that. But the point is that the existing charter enrollment went down from last year to this year. And not only did it go down, it went down at the same time because many of these charter schools are opening up grades as they move forward. I think I lost count. I think there were 13 grades that were opened or something like that. And the point I'm trying to make, and this goes for all people looking at charters and things like that, it's more than just the budget for us. That's a concern, but I believe parents have the right to try to go get their kids to go where they want, understanding that many of them are going after traditional education. But I don't want to get into a situation like is in New Orleans, where every year 2 or 3 charters seem to close and 2 or 3 charters seem to open and take their place, and it's just a constant churn. And so, as I'm cautioning folks, as you come up with charter operations, we're starting to get to the point now where there's starting to be market share considerations and what is feasibly possible. Because I know, for instance, when I looked at, and I'm not picking on Great Hearts, I'm just using that as an example. Their original numbers coming in on their budget was, I think, 440 students, and they ended up under 300 students. And you look at a lot of other schools, and their enrollment is down from last year, again, only because, and they raised the number of grades, so that means that even though they raised the number of grades, the enrollment's still down. Right now, there's only one charter school in this parish that has any significant waiting list, and that's Basis Matera. Every other school, a couple of other schools have waiting lists, but it's waiting lists of 3, 4, 5 students, maybe 10. Most of them have none at any grade level. So my only point is, we need to not only be aware of what programs are being offered, we need to be aware of what the financial implications are for all of these schools, not just the financial implication on us, but can these schools be successful as they come forward? Because spending a lot of money and starting up a school to watch it go bust, and when that happens, the educational quality is going to be down. You can have a lot of churn with parents going back and forth. So it's just a word of caution. I'm going along with what these people want to do, and they can go to Bessie and do whatever they want. That's perfectly within their right. But as we go through this year after year after year, we need to really start focusing more I believe, on the financial viability of the charter applications, because the market is starting to get a little bit saturated. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Lewis.
I agree with both Board Member Lannis and Gode, because what these guys want to do, we've got schools already doing that. With the film production, I mean, we've got middle school, we've got schools already doing that. And I can see them wanting to be a type 2. I mean, but here's the thing. And Mr. Gode, you just talked about type 1s. There's, what, how many type 1s do we have? What, 14. I just kind of wonder what the train of thought was on the previous board when those 14 got approved. Why wasn't the same mindset present then? I'm not talking about who was on it and who was off it. I just want to know, and it's a moot point, but we've got 14 of them here, and half of them, 11 of them are probably D's and F's. It's almost like we're trying to put the horses back in the barn after the door been open. Now, you know, so let's think long and hard about, like you said, Mr. Gode, charter schools, Mr. Landis, charter schools, Mr. Martin, charter schools. We are a public school district. Now, I know charter schools are public schools. They're public schools. But we don't need duplication of services. I know for a fact there's a high school in the city that wants to do the exact same thing that these guys are talking about. And I trust them to do it more so than I trust these other cats to do it. So that's all I want to say. We just, you know, we're trying to close the barn door after the cows and got out. So we need to think long and hard about approving. Let them go to Bessie. Half the stuff we deal with is a kick the can down the road by Bessie anyway. Let them go to Bessie. Good luck.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis. Okay, we are now seeing no further comments in the queue for the board. We will now turn to comments from the public. Ms. Matthews.
First, I want to say I do understand that they want to be denied to go to Bessie, and so I think my comments are kind of more for them than you all. First, I want to say Ms. Blunchy gets my utmost respect. You can kind of say she had her hand in raising me with Ms. Crawford. If she scored them well, then I'm sure that they are wonderful. However, we simply don't have a place for them in EBR. I emailed you all a presentation earlier today highlighting the wonderful things that several of our schools are already doing. As you can see, we provide elementary, middle, and high school magnet and regular traditional schools with BRCV PA, Park Forest, Southeast, Bel Air, Terra, and a program next year at McKinley is partnering with Celtic Studios already. So really, you know, I'm not saying that they shouldn't have this program because what they provided does actually really look good. But I think that they really need to take this program to an area that isn't doing it. That way that they can, you know, provide something that is rich and strengthening to students who are in need of it, who don't have it. Because in EBR, we are doing it, and we are doing it well for our students. And so I really think that they should find an area that is lacking in that And I hope that that is what they do, because it would just be oversaturated if they did it. I understand they're not looking just in EBR. The reason why they want the other type is so they can branch out. But, you know, don't mess with EBR, because we've got this and we're doing it well. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Finney.
If this application scored well, there's something seriously wrong with the metric. It doesn't look like a serious application. For one thing, it mentions that it's going to be in the community of Inniswall that has a population of over 200,000. That's a direct, almost direct quote. You should absolutely deny this, and then all 9 of you on the board should go to Bessie and fight like hell to keep them from spending our tax money on a stupid idea. If there is a need for these courses, they should be taught at our high schools or high schools in Ascension Parish. If it's so specialized it has to be located somewhere with access from all parishes, the solution is to figure out how to make it legal for a few kids from other parishes that can't do these programs to come to our public schools and have the appropriate transfer of the MFP. Because if this goes to Bessie and they approve it, which they should not because it is a bad proposal and a bad idea and a poor use of money, it will come out of this district's budget anyway. Inspire is a type 2 school in Baker that gets more money from this district than from Baker. Advantage is a type 2 school in Baker that gets more money from this district than from Baker. Likewise, probably the Geo location in Baker. You've got Collegiate Academy, which should never have been approved, operating entirely in EBR, with maybe just a handful of students from elsewhere, run by a board that meets in New Orleans, hasn't met in Baton Rouge in about 3 years. It's run on our tax money. Do not kick the can down to Bessie and then let them approve it and think you've done anything worthwhile. Deny this application and then go to Bessie and make sure they quit messing with the operation of schools and the use of our local taxpayers' money. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. McMillan.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Tanya McMillan. I have a son here in East Baton Rouge Parish School System. And I took a look at this application, and I think that it would be very appealing to a lot of children. I think that a lot of kids would say, oh my gosh, let me go over there and learn how to produce movies and produce films. Who wouldn't want to do that for school, right? And I think that the challenge that we have as a school district is that even though we have these resources within our school district, they're not necessarily being utilized to their fullest. It's not offered to every child who wants to participate in film production, but it can be. Just like we have kids orchestra, we could have kids films. It could be offered within our school district to all of our children. Because too, this school is planning on housing 600 kids. That's a whole school worth of children. That's like 24 teachers' jobs to teach 600 children. So not only should we not have this as a charter school, because then also we're using our tax dollars to give a skill to children for them to take to other places and invest in those communities, because the film community in Baton Rouge is not what it used to be. So what are we educating and spending this money for? It's one thing to learn a skill, it's another thing to spend a bunch of money teaching kids to do it, and we're not going to reap the investment of it. So I don't think that we need a whole school for that in East Baton Rouge Parish. I think that there are programs that we can use and resources that we already have that we could be utilizing differently so that we can offer these kinds of opportunities to all children in Baton Rouge, not just those at magnet schools, not just those who take a certain test and get into a certain gifted program and benefit from them, but all kids in Baton Rouge. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no further public comment, we will now return to comments from the board. Mr. Gode.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to make it, whoa, sounds loud. I just wanted to make it clear, I was not trying to be anti-charter necessarily in my comments. I was just trying to really talk about that we need to be thoughtful in how we go about doing these. You know, back when we approved the charters, that some people I heard in the audience saying I was on the board. Yes, I was on the board. We had almost no charters at that time. Now we have some successful charters. And I think you're starting to see, I guess we've had 4 charters, I believe, close in the last, I know 3 charters close in the last couple of years. And as it goes through, so I think we're in that process where we're starting to go through and weed out the charters that aren't working. I just don't want it to get to be a revolving door where every year there's 1 or 2 leave and 1 or 2 start up, and we get into that situation. But I do believe in the right for parents to choose the school for their kids, and if that's the school they want to choose, that's all well and good. It is, after all, it's not our money, it's the public's money, and they part of the public. So as we walk through that, I think we need to do that. But I do think we need to be conscious of making sure that schools we approve have both the educational capacity and also the financial capacity to succeed. Because spending a whole bunch of money and not getting the kids to fill it up is a big issue. And I know, for instance, I can't remember what was the school. I want to say, I don't remember which school it was, that they had opened up the school in New Orleans, and in 2 years they closed the school because they just didn't have enough kids. And it's one of the national operators that are coming into that. So I just want us to start being more cautious about that, because it's not, we're past the point, if you build it, they will come. And I just want us to be aware of that and have that as part of our thinking. And as we start to approve some of these things, we need to have more insight into what are their marketing plans, how did they come up with the number of students they're going to do, how, and what impact does that budget have, on what they do. We just had Great Hearts is a great operator. They ended up with 66% of the students that they thought they would get when they open up their building. So I know they have the wherewithal to go through that and things like that, because they have a national organization and can work through that. But I just think some of these considerations need to be we need to be more thoughtful as we go through these and as we look at this. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Lewis. Mr. Lannis.
Yes, ma'am. I think that was eloquently put, Mr. Godet, and I'll go a step further. I think that, and I'll offer this up to the board again, the reason why you see so many charter applications and many of them look like they're being duplicated is because we don't have a set policy in place that says that we weed out certain proposals. If we had an RFP process in place, we could at least see what are the needs of our district, the things that we don't offer, and see if there's a place that we could fit some of these schools in that way. But because we don't, it makes that process really hard for us. And also what I'll add to that is, in terms of what you said, Mr. Godet, is the vetting process. We need to do a better job on our board of understanding whether or not a lot of these charter models fit our district. What I will take is IDEA public schools. What I have found is that they work very well in Texas because there are some cultural barriers that go along with the school. But what you find when they come to urban districts, much like Baton Rouge, they do not do well. And the reason why is because there are many, many cultural differences that are not being taken into account. And because so, a lot of those students are sitting inside of those schools and they're not doing well. I mean, if we're going to be honest about it, as I said earlier, being fully transparent, we approve IDEA, and then I also voted for it too. However, that school, every single one of the IDEA schools now are Fs. And this is not to pounce or beat up on IDEA, but at the end of the day, what we do is we educate kids. And we have to put our best foot and best practices forward to ensure that we do those things on behalf of our kids. Now, by our own charter policy, because they did receive an F, it's going to be virtually impossible for them to be approved in 3 years, because they would have to, on an average, receive a C. With the state lifting their scoring rubric by at least 5 to 10 points, that's going to be even harder for them to do that, especially with everything that's going on right now. So I just say again, we have to be very cautious about the schools that we let in if we're going to accept charter schools. And I think by being cautious, we look at proposals and see what our needs are. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no further comments from the board, we will now entertain a vote, and this is for the recommendation to deny the charter application.
Please vote. Motion carries.
Thank you. Item 6, charter school application, Third Future Schools. Discussion or consideration of the Third Future Schools application and related matters. Is there a motion? Okay, and
I'm sorry. I move to accept the recommendation to deny.
okay. All right, so it has been moved by Mr. Lannis and seconded by Ms. Stewart to accept the recommendation to deny the application. Okay, comments from the board. Okay, seeing none, we'll now turn to comments from the public. Mr. Derek Wheeler.
Good evening, board. I'm the assistant principal at JT. I heard about Third Futures wanting to take over the building I work in this morning when I read Charles' article in The Advocate. It was pretty insulting, honestly, but that's all right. I want to talk about the absurdity of the situation. We've had a couple of people come up here, and they have pointed out that our charter schools are not serving our students with disabilities, and that's true. I've had multiple meetings with parents in my time as an AP, and many times I've sat in an IEP meeting or an SBLC meeting, and they've told me, oh, well, at this charter school, they didn't acknowledge that we had an IEP, or they didn't implement my IEP, or they didn't want to even take a SBLC meeting to set up an IEP. We had 2 presentations from our charter school renewals. I noticed that both of them did not meet expectations for students with disabilities. I'm in now my 3rd year as an AP, and every year I've noticed in October and February, I get a bunch of new students. They come from charter schools. How is it that we are getting these charter schools who are enrolling our students, they get their federal money, and then, when the timing's right, they now come back to me? How's that the right decision? We started this meeting today talking about how we are here for students and we're doing the best for students. What I'm seeing from my position as an assistant principal is that charter schools in this district are not serving the interests of our students, period. For my school specifically, we have a social contract with the community. We said we were going to build a K-8 school, a public school, in their area. And now what we're saying is we're going to turn around and say to those people, we took your tax money, we spent tens of millions of dollars building you a school, and now it's no longer to be a public school. We're going to give it to a charter school. That doesn't make any sense to me. We had to pass tax renewal policies through a public vote. The public agreed to give EBR schools a public school, and that's what we have. We should not turn around and give that school that we just built, and we've been open for 3 years now, away. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Matthews.
I first want to thank Board Member Lannis for his motion. You know, when I was a little kid flying on an airplane back and forth from Brooklyn to my mom in Texas, and they would always say, you know, if we have an emergency and you're an adult sitting next to a child, put the air mask on you first, then you help the child. I never liked that. I didn't think it was fair because I was a little kid and I didn't understand. But if the adult can't breathe, if the adult dies first, then nobody can breathe. Okay? I say that to point out that the teachers that left EBR in droves to go work at Prescott because of the much higher salaries, they're not happy. They're not getting the salary they were promised. There's some issues over there. And then a lot of them were let go because there's not as high of an enrollment as there was a possibility. And we all know if we don't have enrollment, it's like that in EBR too. If, you know, the school loses kids, we have to cut teachers. We lose that position, maybe they might get moved to a different school, but you know, you can't just have people there if you don't have the children. So what I would like to say is please do pass Lannis's motion. And I want to tell those teachers who did go to Prescott, and maybe if you're still there, come on home. And at the next board meeting, you know, we are going to have a motion for a stipend, or I don't know if it's technically called a stipend, but there's going to be something for you if you go to work in North Baton Rouge, an alternative school, if you're in science, math, special ed, and if you're highly effective. So come on home to East Baton Rouge Parish. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Ross. Oh, I'm sorry, Ms. Ross. And please state your first name for the record. I do apologize.
Okay, it gets chopped up a lot. It's Tavarin Ross. My name, again, is Tavarin Ross. I am principal of La Belle Aire Elementary School. I guess I'm here for some clarity as well. Since the release of the article, I've been just bombarded with questions about the charter school initiative towards La Belle Aire Elementary. However, I wasn't able to provide clarity because I was not made aware that we were even being considered for a turnaround. I guess my questions to the board or whoever presented, or the charter schools, what was the strategic process for determining which schools were going to be transformed? The article stated that they wanted to transform 3 D and F schools. They listed 7. Currently, EBR has about 37 schools that are rated D and F. So I'm wondering, you know, what was the process? What was the criteria for determining which schools were going to be chosen? When I looked at the schools, the additional schools, we have Park Forest Middle, Claiborne Elementary, Jefferson Terrace that just spoke, Broadmoor Elementary, as well as Southeast Middle School. Now, as we've been talking about, I know we have consolidation processes going on that the superintendent is doing some strategic things that make sense with the budget to try to do. However, I'm wondering if, you know, or could it be considered that if they're going to approve charter schools, that they're leasing out those buildings and not transporting those schools. So I just want to be an advocate for La Belle Aire Elementary. This is my 3rd year as principal. Since year 1, we moved our school performance school from an F to a D in first year. Of course, that was during COVID. They didn't count it. So the following year, we did it again. This past year, we grew 6.2 points, 3 points from a C. The purpose of this charter is to turn around schools. We're turning around our own schools. The superintendent has provided a plethora of resources for us to develop as leaders to do the work in our school, in our district. So I just wanted to be an advocate for my community. We're doing what's in the best interest for our children. We have a 40% Hispanic population. They are performing at a C level. They're outperforming traditional students. We're doing the work. So I would like the board to support, to deny, because we have people in place that are doing the work. We're vested in the work. We're here, we're grinding, and we just want a fair opportunity to be able to continue to develop our community. We have a very tight-knit community. I have about 500 students. It's a true community school. We have over 400 walkers that walk to the school every day. So we have good relationships with our parents. They're vested. We're vested. We're here. We're here to support the superintendent, his mission to grow and make EBR better, and that's what we're doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ross. Okay, so Mr. Shamlin, did you want to speak now? Okay.
I just wanted to respond to the principal's concerns. Just a point of clarification for the board. Our policy with regard to conversion schools, that's a traditional school that converts to a type 3, which is one of the mentions in this application, actually requires the pre-approval of the professional faculty, staff, parents, and students of the school itself. There's an actual official election that's supposed to be held, and I believe that's one of the bases for which this application was denied by the independent evaluators. I just wanted to make sure that was clear to the board, that the concern of the principal is valid, but that's a step in the process that has to happen that didn't really happen here. And I think that's the basis for one of the recommendations for this application.
Thank you. Dr. Fanny.
Thank you. I would hope that in the future, applications that are incomplete and don't conform to the required format should not even be presented to the board, because now you've basically spooked 8 school communities for no reason. Because people from Colorado have no business coming in and saying, because we're not from Louisiana, we're smarter than you, and we're going to throw a little bit of money at a few people, and everything will magically turn into rainbows, unicorns, and all great things. Just watch Prescott Middle. I'm sure it's going to be a disaster. It's an illegal arrangement, in my view, just like Capitol High was. Recovery school districts are either supposed to be charters or direct run. They're not supposed to be contracted to outside parties, and the Department of Education blew it, and they didn't have anybody ready to take over when Democracy Prep realized that they were failing. And this administration blew it because they didn't step in and say, we can do a better job of Prescott Middle than people from out of state. Just because somebody has not agreed to make Louisiana their home does not mean they are more qualified to educate Louisiana students than the people who have decided this is the community they want to live in. This application shouldn't be taken seriously. Third Futures should not be allowed to operate Prescott. It needs to be returned to this community. It needs to be a directly run school. That would leave 3 schools in the RSD. They need to be brought back within our fold in some way, possibly as type 1s or type 3s. And while we're talking about charters, you need to close ideas, all 3 campuses at the end of this year. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Fanny. Okay, next we have Kaylin Jones, principal of Broadmoor Elementary. And congratulations, Ms. Jones.
Thank you so much. Good evening. My name is Kaylin Jones. I am the newly appointed principal at Broadmoor Elementary. Today makes 1 whole week that I have been at Broadmoor, and I am simply here to advocate for my school. What I can attest to is the fair and just process of the hiring process in order for me to get to this school. It included the following: multiple executive directors, HR representatives, 2 teachers, community partners, a volunteer, parent representative from the PTO, and eventually Dr. Narcisse. The people have spoken. They selected me to move this school in the right direction. I'm simply here to ask to give us the opportunity, allow Broadmoor and the other schools that were named to remain in EBR and move our students. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Okay, next we have Mr. Tremel Howard.
Thank you, Tremel Howard. In this moment, I come in my capacity as the State Director for the Education Trust. And one of the things that I want to talk to you guys about as a board is that this conversation of education is very complex. And the reason that you are policymakers is because you create policy in order to effectively help you, guide you as you make decisions. You have a policy that speaks the replication of charter schools. I have no doubt that the school that is listed to take over these schools is going to be a successful school. If you haven't had an opportunity to stop by that school, please do. But what the policy does say is that there's a time and a place for you to replicate charters. This school has not been here long enough to even prove that what they are going to do is possible to be replicated across 7 different schools. So as the folks have spoke, you are making basically a premature decision if you decide to approve this charter. The policy speaks to what has to be in place from a school performance stance in order for a school to be replicated. The Third Future has not been here long enough to even meet your policy mandate. If you don't like the policy that's in place, you can amend the policy in order to drive and take your decisions. But right now, as it stands, they have not even met the recommendations in order to replicate what is happening. Education is a very complex decision, and we won't all agree on the decisions that we need to make in order to move students forward. But as a district, we have to make better decisions in order to service kids, specifically kids who have been underserved, and you have policy. If you don't like the policy that I spent my blood, sweat, and tears creating, you can amend it, or you can make decisions that aligns with the policy that you have in place. And so I will ask that you also support the recommendation to deny. And if you have concerns about how schools are being ran in this district, as board members, you have an opportunity to create. You are policymakers. We spend a lot of time talking about things that don't really matter because you have opportunities to create, change, and amend policies if you don't agree with the way they're driving decisions. So I too support the recommendation to oppose this decision.
Thank you. Ms. McMillan.
Again, I'm Tanya McMillan, parent of a child in East Baton Rouge Parish School System. And just the fact that we have D and F schools is concerning. And the fact that we play tug of war with the children's lives that attend those D and F schools is troublesome. If we are failing them and somebody else wants to try to educate them, then we really need to step up and save them before that happens. So if our superintendent has put things in place and have set certain expectations, and if schools are following them and those schools are improving, then why can't we just do that everywhere? Is there someone who is resistant? Is there someone who is just refusing? If so, can we get rid of them? Why do we continue to play tug of war with our children? It's just not fair. It's not fair to them. They're always the collateral damage. And we sit here and fuss and we're giving them D and F schools. And it's like, no, let me keep them in a D and F school. Is that fair? So if we don't want to lose them, we need to change those schools from D and F schools. And I think we can start doing that by asking the kids what they need. We all sit up here and make decisions for children, but when's the last time we had a town hall with the kids? and ask them what they need. What would hold your interest in class? What makes you respond? What discourages you? What makes you not want to go to school? What makes you want to go to school? What makes you pay attention? What distracts you? We're talking about them. We're passing them around like they a drink. And no one's talking to them. So I just ask that we ask the kids more, and that if we set expectations, and if those things are working, we make sure that everybody is meeting those expectations. If not, get rid of them.
Thank you. Seeing no further public comments, we now return to comments from the board. Mr. Gode.
Yes, thank you, President Lewis. I just wanted to make sure that everyone in the room and the public understands that this is not a recommendation from staff. I mean, the proposal here is not a proposal from staff. It's not a proposal from the board. This is a proposal from the charter school operators to the board. So the board has not had any input into putting this together, nor has the district had input into putting this together. This is the charter school making their application and their presentation to the staff and to the board. And the staff, through Ms. Bunchy, by following law, went and did the evaluation, and there are all laws about which steps we need to take and all that sort of stuff. So for the disconcernment that it caused at some of these schools, I very much apologize for that, but that's the way the process works. It's not something we, as the board, or it's not something that the district has done. It is what was published in the paper and what was put into the application to us. So we're not responsible for any of that. And I don't think, I heard someone talking about what's the process that the schools were selected. I have no idea. I mean, we're not the ones doing that. I also want to talk about a little bit about, we talked about Recovery School District and Capitol High and how those things have turned around. Capitol High spent 14 years. A couple of years were pretty decent. After that, it went to heck in a handbasket. And so we're taking Capitol High back into our fold. I don't know how many schools we can, we have to keep doing that. And making these schools better. I do think we have a lot of programs in here making our schools better. We talked about all the early childhood work that we're doing. We're talking about all the literacy work that we're doing, all the literacy coaches that we're putting in there, all the things around ninth grade success. So we have changed a lot of things. And part of the problem is we've changed a lot of things. Change is painful. Change takes time to happen. I keep saying over and over again, you're not going to get real results till after 5 years because it takes that long. If you got a kid that's a couple of years behind in reading, even if they gain a grade and a half a year, it's going to take them several years to catch up. That's the way, I mean, you can't put 15 pounds into a 5-pound bag. That's just the way it works. And so we are doing a lot of things. I think people lose sight of all the good things that are going on, and we need to stay the course to bring those to fruition because I think we're doing the right things in the right way. And I think as the new principal for Broadmoor, by the way, my wife went to Broadmoor Elementary and Broadmoor Middle and Broadmoor High, but and I have a brick from the old building. But that's a school that it needs to improve. There's no doubt about it. That school needs to improve. But we're trying to put new faces in there, bring in new programs. And the biggest thing we need to do is overcome the inertia of this is the way we've always done it. This is the way. Don't tell me how to do this. I've been teaching for 30 years. This is how we got to do it. I fully respect the knowledge that teachers gain over the years. They are wonderful people. Both my parents were teachers, okay? But the world is not the same as it was 20 years ago. The kids are not the same that it was 20 years ago. I read an article Tuesday, today's Thursday, Tuesday, The first iPhone was introduced to the world in 2007. So that means the kids who are 17 years old today were born, kids that are 18 years old today were born before this was ever introduced into the world. Most of your high school seniors were born before this device existed. And look how much this has changed our world. We need to keep changing, but recognize change is painful and recognize that you need consistency to work through to continue the change to get to a good place. So again, this is not our plan. This is the plan presented to us for our review and approval. And I don't want anyone, any of our school parents or principals or anything, thinking that we or the district has gone out and selected them for anything. We are responding to what was given to us. Thank you.
Ending on 0-0.
Thank you. You did well. Mr. Lannis.
Thank you, Madam President. I just want to say I agree with a lot of what Mr. Howard said. If you actually go to Third Futures at Prescott Academy and you see the amazing work that's happening there, you will be blown away. And I'm not just saying that. The intense interventions that they do with students, and they do it every single day, at least 5 hours a week. It is phenomenal to see those kids or those students who have historically come from underperforming schools. I won't say failing, Coach. I'm going to say underperforming. Underperforming schools and how they are engaged in a lot of the work that's happening at the school. But on the other side, I would also agree at what he said is that they're still in their first year. We have to see whether or not those that the models and the approaches that they're actually using are actually effective for that population of students. But I do applaud them for the work that they are doing. But I would still caution on the error, even if they were hitting those targets, even if they did come forth right now with a renewal, not because Third Future is doing a bad job, but because, again, our budget has to come first because we have to take care of our district and all the needs of our district before we interject and allow someone else to come into our district. It's almost like saying that I own a house and I got 3 bedrooms and all my family occupies those bedrooms, but I'm going to allow other people to come in and we don't have enough money to feed everybody inside of that home. You got to take care of the home first. And EBR is our home and we have to make sure that we do that. But again, that's not to knock Third Futures. You all are doing a phenomenal job at what you are doing. And I ask that you continue to do it. And I say that if you can prove that, if we are in a better financial state when you do come back, maybe it is beneficial that we add you in. I don't say at the same proposal level, but I just say that I commend you for the work that you are doing. Now, what I also say is I'm committed to the fact that we have to make systematic and organizational changes inside of our district, one of which is going to call for us to do school consolidations. That is not going to be an easy process. There's going to be a lot of, I would hate to say it, disruption inside of our district because, as you said, Mr. Godet, that's what happens when you bring about change. Sometimes change is not easy, but if it's benefiting our district and it helps our students and helps our employees, that's what matters at the end of the day. But I will also end by saying I will not agree to go through school consolidations only to turn around and give those schools 2 charters. That does little to fix the fact that we have to go through some corrective actions for our own direct run schools. You see, going through consolidations is not just to simply merge schools. It's to fix a lot of the problems inside of our underperforming schools that we're currently dealing with. And I do understand that a lot of that movement is going to take place in North Baton Rouge, in my district and also in your district, President Powell Lewis, because out of every single school district, we have the most elementary schools, and most of which are under 50% utilization. So I just caution on that error and saying that we have to put our best foot forward, but continue to do what you are doing, Third Futures. You're doing great work. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Shamlin, you're no longer in the queue. Okay. All right, Ms. Chatelain.
Thank you. I just have a couple points to make. I like the advice here tonight. Would like to question and maybe talk offline how an application can make it to us if it's incomplete. That doesn't feel like the best use of time if they really didn't, follow all the procedure. The second point is just communication. If we had this in our lap and we knew that they were applying and these schools were listed, I'm sorry that nobody reached out directly to these principals to tell them because we did know about this. It was posted internally. So maybe we can work on our communication with principals ahead of time so that they're not having to read that in the paper the night before the day of a board meeting. I don't read the Advocate, but those that do, that would be a really terrible way to find out. So I'd like to apologize about that. I didn't know that there were principals here that didn't know. And to the point of causing panic, absolutely, right? If your parent is reading that and you didn't even know, nobody likes to look stupid. So that is not a positive thing. So maybe we can work on that moving forward. Next point, somebody advised Third Futures pretty poorly here, because if you don't understand the Louisiana law of how to apply for a Type 3 or Type 3B charter, and know that you would have to get this approved, like I'm scratching my head at why this is even on our desk and wasting my time right now. Lastly, if Third Futures is doing well, and I hope that there are wonderful results from Prescott, share your techniques. Why gatekeep that? If what you're doing works, let's replicate it. Can we steal it? Can we have it? Why not? If we can't turn around all of our schools. I see your work that you're doing in Texas and Aurora. That's great. Kudos. Tell us your secrets. We want to turn around all of our schools. And I also would pose that to other charter schools or charter leaders or folks that are looking to come here, that if they have some wonderful secret sauce idea, share it with our leadership. You know, these kids are all our kids. If you're a charter school, you're still a public school student, and maybe some of us have forgotten that they're all our kids. I don't care where you're enrolled. If you're a charter schools are public schools, period. So I just want to make those points, and I'm done.
Thank you. Mr. Lewis.
Take me out. I've said it 100 times.
Yes, sir. Mr. Shamlin.
No, I just wanted to respond to Ms. Chatelain's question about the applications themselves. We do have, and we can talk more offline, but I kind of want to let the board know, we do have state law that requires local school boards to review and formally act upon each charter proposal received within the timelines established by Bessie. And so the completion, we can look into your question about the nature of the application and how complete it is, but by law, we have to consider each application, and the process has to also be transparent. That's also in the statute. So one of the reasons we bring them to the board is so that there can be discussion between and among board members and the community that's transparent, so everyone can be aware of what's being said regardless of the application's nature. But I will look further into that for you and provide more information. I just want the board to know that that's a statutory requirement that we look at.
Just to confirm, they're applying for a Type 1 or a Type 3 because it's a conversion?
Yeah, I believe it was, and we'll let our independent evaluator come up if she'd like to speak to that, because her job was kind of look through that, I believe. But I believe they were asking for several options, potentially, a 1, a 3, or a 3B. And several of those were issues because we weren't able to even provide, a 3B requires return of a Type 5, which we weren't in a position to provide. A 3, there's certain policy requirements that we have to go through before we can even entertain a 3. And so there were issues with even being able to meet those requirements.
Thank you. Mr. Lewis.
I'm going to say it anyway, Darius. Seriously. And Ms. Blanche, nod yes or no if I'm wrong. The spirit of charter schools, when they are Type 1s, in the spirit of charter schools, wasn't there supposed to be some type of sharing information or sharing techniques? Or if it's working for you and you're a partner with a public school, isn't there supposed to be some sharing going back and forth? Okay, I'm just wondering. Maybe it's just me and being
Excuse
thinking
me,
that.
Coach, just for a moment. Ms. Blanche, if you'll come to the mic, please. Thank you.
It's not in Bulletin 126 that I know of, Mr. Shamlin. And so, first of all, I'm Katie Blunchy, and I'm your third-party evaluator. So if I haven't had the opportunity to meet you before, good evening. And I thank you for your work, and congratulations to our president and our vice president. The Bulletin 126 drives everything that we do. It talks for something that is new and unique and maybe something that the district doesn't have. Okay. So, and the governance is a little bit different because they have their own school board. So there are many things that are rolled into there. Sharing with someone else, if I'm understanding what you're saying, I don't remember seeing that in 126. It would be the right thing to do.
Well, maybe sharing's the wrong word to use. I don't know. But, I mean, if you're going to be a type 1 and you're going to do business on our dime, Tramiel talked about policy. Let's make that part of the policy.
Okay, I see where you're going
You know,
with that.
let's mandate, for example, talking about third futures. And Darius, we had this conversation a few years ago when we talked about Mentorship Academy when I was down there. If it works, if it's about educating children, then let's do that.
And that really would be simple to achieve because I know the district, well, like the elementary, middle, and high schools that are grouped together do have meetings, and it would be good to bring the charters in and talk about what they're doing and how they're doing it. So it would be easy to achieve, Coach.
And I mean, to me, it's so simple that it's, you know, and I kind of dipped my toes in the education waters around here right about the time the charter school versus traditional school thing took off around here. And it was simply divide and conquer. It was simply divide and conquer, and we hadn't gotten past it yet. Because one group knows that there's a lot of money in failure. There's a lot of profit in it. We hadn't gotten past the us versus them. And until we do that, we will be what we are.
We have to work together.
We have to work together.
Everybody.
With technology, somebody just made the comment a few minutes ago about the world not being the same it was 10 years ago. What's wrong with, and I'm going to take schools in my district, hope I don't offend anybody, WHAM is a great school. They're doing stuff at WHAM that's fantastic. Then why can't WHAM and why can't WHAM and Melrose Elementary work in a consortium together? Why can't those teachers work together? Why can't WHAM and Capital Elementary? We've got to get out of I think Mike said a little while ago, we got to get out of the business of doing things the same way that we've been doing it for 30 years. COVID changed the way the world will educate for the next 100 years. But we're still, in a lot of ways, trying to put square pegs in round holes in EBR. In the history of this district, if it doesn't do anything, it should mandate that you get out of the box when it comes to educating kids, because we sat in a desegregation suit for nearly a half a century. And we're still arguing 150 years later prior to how to educate black and brown and poor children, period, in the South. So let's get out of the box and stop the hooray for my side, which is mostly how the arguments go around here, and let's educate children. Because I don't do nothing else while I'm up here, you're going to get tired of hearing me saying it. That's why I told you, Darius, I said it 100 times already, so make it 101 tonight. We need to get out of our own way and start educating children the best way we can. And that might mean working with somebody you don't like.
That's right.
101, Darius.
Thank you.
Ms.
Just
Martin.
32 seconds over. It's okay.
That's all right. Just let me come back. I'll use like a minute or so.
Thank you. Mr. Ballou.
Thank you, President Powell Lewis. Just real quick, the application that was filed is part of the is attached on the record. So it's a 69-page application. It's pretty detailed as far as the Third Future's philosophy, their methods. If anybody's interested in reviewing that, it goes into quite a bit of detail. So that's all. I just wanted to comment.
Thank you. Mr. Lannis.
I spoke already, but I just wanted to use a point of personal privilege. I just so much love Miss Blunchy. She is my 6th grade principal, and she is still doing this work.
Thank you.
I can still remember the way you inspired teachers when I went to that school, Strummer Middle School at the time, and it was a blue ribbon school under your leadership. So seeing you here today as our third-party evaluator, I couldn't think of somebody who we could trust more. So I just wanted to give you that.
Thank you.
Give you flowers. Thank you,
I
Ms. Blunchy.
appreciate it.
Thank you. Seeing no further comments, we will now entertain a vote.
Please vote.
And the vote will be in response to a recommendation to deny the application.
Yes, ma'am. It's a motion to accept the recommendation to deny.
Thank you.
The motion carries.
Okay, thank you. Is there a motion on the floor to adjourn?
Before you adjourn, 1 second.
Yes.
That was one thing, Madam President, I did not get a chance to do before we started this meeting, and I wanted to make sure that we acknowledge it. Over the holiday break, ladies and gentlemen, we lost one of our students due to senseless gun violence who attended a Strummer High School, and that school is still devastated by the loss of that child. He was in the 9th grade, played football, made great grades, but unfortunately, as he was walking home with his friends, someone shot a gun and he was taken. So if you all did not mind, I would love for us to have a moment of silence for them. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gode or Coach Lewis. Thank you. This meeting is now adjourned, and we will take a 5-minute recess before starting the Committee of the Whole.
Board members, please log out of the special meeting and into the COW.
You said stay inside of the special and don't log in the COW?
Something like that, Mr.
Okay.
All right, everybody can take their seats so we can get ready to get started.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, man, you gotta.
Well, this is the first warning.
No.
This is a warning shot. It's a warning. It's a warning.
Wake 'em up.
All right.
See how quiet I got the room?
Yeah. All right. Do we have enough of we got a quorum here? You 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right. Please bear with me as I chair my first meeting. I'd like to call call to order the meeting of the Committee of the Whole of the East Baton Rouge Parish School System. Do I just go straight to the first
Yes, sir.
item? Oh, roll call. Yes. Could you call the roll, please, Madam Secretary?
This is going to be out of order. You know what, we're just going to go in district order. District 1, Mr. Blue.
Here.
District 2, Mr. Lannis.
Present.
District 3, President Powell Lewis.
Present.
District 4, Ms. Stewart.
Present.
District 5, Mr. Lewis.
Present.
District 6, Mr. Russ. District 7, Mr. Goday.
Present.
District 8, Ms. Chatelain.
Here.
District 9, Vice President Martin.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Mr. Vice President, if you don't mind, I want to use a point of personal privilege. I noticed that every time we vote, Miss Amy, is Amy in the room? I don't know, see her. But every time we vote, it still reads that I'm the president. That part just needs to be changed for Ms. Powell Lewis and for Vice President Martin. Okay, gotcha.
Thank you very much. All right, moving straight in. First item is item B1, Professional Services Contract, Resourceful Consulting, LLC. Consideration of a request for the approval of a professional services contract between the East Baton Rouge Parish School Board and Resourceful Consulting, LLC in the amount of $45,000 to implement strategies and activities of a comprehensive Year 2 plan to expand seat access for children under the age of 5. Strategic alignment, student achievement, funding source, Ready Start Network, CCFD. Is there a motion? Motion by Mr. Ballou. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Lannis. All right. Superintendent, is there any presentation on this? Are we moving straight into consideration?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Any comments from any of the board members? All right. Seeing none, we'll turn to comments from members of the public. Anybody turn any cards on this item? One item. All right, one card. Dr. James Finney. Thank you. Dr. James Finney.
Thank you. With new leadership, I would hope you'd take the opportunity to start discussing policy. And before you spend any money on an outside consultant, even a relatively small amount, you should have discussion about what your strategy is for serving kids that are younger than kindergarten age. I would hope that we would get to a point where kids could walk to their neighborhood school, hopefully with their older sibling or parents holding their hand at age 4 or possibly even 3 if we can afford it. It seems that there currently is no strategy, there is no comprehensive policy, and so I don't think that this 48,000 whatever would necessarily be well spent in advancing a policy that this board is in favor of. I don't think we should continue just sending money to whatever private daycares accept it. I think we need to make sure there are seats where people need seats. And I think children are better served in public school buildings than in storefront operations if they're being funded with public money. So I would suggest defer this for a while, have a policy discussion, and then see if the next move is to use the consultants. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sensitive about mics being open. Seeing no further comments by the public, are there any comments from the board? Seeing no comments from the board, we'll move to a vote, Madam Secretary.
Please vote. The motion carries.
Thank you. Item B2, professional services contract, Amira Learning, Inc. Consideration of a request for the approval of a professional service contract between the East Baton Rouge Parish School Board and Amira Learning, Inc. in the amount of $380,987 to provide content support in English language arts and improve alignment with state standards using a technology platform. Strategic alignment, student achievement, funding source, ESSER 3 incentive. Any comments from the board? I'm sorry. Thank you. Is there a motion? Moved by Mr. Gaudet, seconded by Mr. Lannis. All right. Any comments by the board? Yes. Vice President Powell-Lewis.
Okay, I just wanted to ask Dr. Narcisse, for the record, if you will share with us, is this the item that we have like a grant for?
Yes, President Powell-Lewis. This is coming from ESSER 3 incentive, which is additional dollars directly from LDOE, and it's designated specifically for this particular vendor to work with our English language learner students.
So nothing from the general fund?
No, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Board Member Lewis.
This is money from the LDOE. It's for a mirror. We've had schools using a mirror already. It was piloted. The only problem I have with it is that the state's telling us what to do. I mean, they're a state certified vendor. We're just a pass through for the money. It's not a big deal. But I just still think that, we know what works best for our kids. Just because the Louisiana Department of Education likes it, doesn't necessarily mean it's the best thing for our kids. But it's like it's LDOE. I'm just, I'm not gonna sit here and act like I'm happy about it. But it's their money. It's not out the general fund. So if they can, if they want to give us $380 to spend like that, we'll spend it. I just hope we getting our money's worth. I hope it's actually working, because I'm not sure if it's working or not, because I just don't know. But maybe there'll be more clarity around data and what works and what's not working. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other members of the board? Seeing none, public comments. Dr. James Finney.
Thank you. $380,000 for less than half a year is a lot of money. It's taxpayer money. You're still responsible for spending it in a careful way. Make sure we're getting our money's worth. And furthermore, this is one-time money. If it's great, you need to have in mind that that funding source will have to be replaced at some point. If it's not the best use of the money that came through the state from the federal government, maybe you should turn it down. It's a thought. You should consider whether it is the best use of students' time. I have no idea. But again, $380,000 is a lot of money.
Thank you. Seeing no further public comments in the queue, back to the board. Mr. Gaudet.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to give a little bit of data which was included in the backup to talk about where we piloted at Cedar Crest Elementary, which is one of our schools with our students. And this compared to the national average. Now, I don't know what the scale is because it's not shown, but in kindergarten, the national average growth was 1.35% in 15 weeks, and they got 3% or 3. I don't know if it's 3. And I'm sorry? Words correct per minute. Okay. In first grade, it was 3.6 and 3.6. We were same as the national average. In second grade, it was 3.3, and our second grade got 8.7. In third grade, it was 1.65 national. We got 5.85. In fourth grade, it was 1.05. Nationally, we got 5.4. In fifth grade, it was 1.5. We got 6.3. So yeah, it's not our money, and it is being given by the state, and we're doing that. But if I'm to believe the data we've been given, it is showing progress, and it is showing the kinds of things that we want to do, and it's compared to a national norm, not to anything else. So, you know, I don't know if we can extend this once the ESSER money runs out, but as somebody said, you know, you don't not feed your kids supper if you don't know where their breakfast is coming from. You still feed them supper, and that's kind of where I am. If we can have this money and we can get the growth, let's get the growth. And if we got to figure out how to continue it going past that, we'll figure out how to continue it and cut some other things if we need to, or if we decide this isn't what we want to do, we want to do other things, we stop this, but at least we've gotten the growth that this has been able to provide. So thank you.
Madam President.
Thank you. I will defer to Dr. Narcisse. I just wanted him to respond to some of the questions that we've heard in the comments. Thank you.
Thank you, President Paul Lewis. So what we can do for the board is share the data on how Amir is doing. As you may know, the fastest growing population in our school system are our English language learners, specifically Hispanic students, about 14%. They've probably grown twice as much since I've been even superintendent here. And we did not have specific programs that helped to scale to help them adapt with languages. And the funding that was given to us by the state, even though yes, they did choose, the program is effective, but we can give a much more detailed data. That's why we did provide data in your packets to show. What we usually will do is the team usually will evaluate all of the academic programs to see what is effective and not effective. And then from there, we tailor that within our current budget on the academic side. So this is an evaluation we have to do all the time anyway, because we want to make sure that whatever is accepted is able to show actual student performance and outcome. And so we have had, quite frankly, because of the additional dollars, a lot of impact with student work, because we've been able to have more dollars to do more stuff. Clearly, as you know, we're going to have to make much more tougher decisions when the budget comes around, but we'll go through the same process we always do, is to evaluate the effectiveness of each program and then make some decisions around prioritizing. All of our priorities has been around our 6 keys from an academic standpoint, and as you know, as the board will look, continue to look at the strategic plan, and especially in the academic area, as you decide on the priorities, on where you want us to focus more on growth, we'll be able to make the budgetary decisions and eliminating according to that. One of the things I do want to just caution everybody is that we can't do everything. We have dollars now; those are going to go away. So there'll be some priority decisions that we'll have to do, and then that would be, whether we will say priority is around we want to raise reading levels first or mathematics, and so that's where you'll actually see specific dollars put into that, and then also how to wrap around personnel for that to happen, whether that's coaches, additional opportunity for interventions, and those things. And so that's kind of how the process goes. But the program is working, but we can give an evaluate. We can give the board and the public a presentation on that. And the population for our English language learners is still growing rapidly.
Thank you, Superintendent. Are there any additional board comments? Seeing none, call for the vote. Madam Secretary.
Please vote. Motion carries.
Narcisse?
Yeah, thank you, Vice President Martin. Sorry about that. Just one more comment I do want to add. I just wanted the public to know, because we as the SOUP and the board, we have to deal with all the challenges. We are one of the most diverse school districts in the state of Louisiana. And we are growing in different ways, and we have multiple different type of students in terms of who we have to serve with multiple needs. This is why it's always challenging on our budget than others that have probably much more homogeneous populations than we do. And so I only bring that up to say is that as we're making our decisions, we'll have to make some tough decisions, but we have to think about the broad range of students and not just only for the few. Even though the state has their scoring method that they do, I do think we have to continue to look more specifically at our population to have more broader context as we decide on what's effective and not effective, and just not letter grades, quite frankly. So I just wanted to put that out there as we think about accountability in a different way to make sure that the type of students we have, we're also measuring growth in multiple ways. And that goes for any school in our school system, magnet, charter, traditional, whatever you call it. But those are things that we have to think about because our diversity is becoming larger, and that becomes more complex, especially being the second largest in the state. So.
Thank you, Superintendent. We completed the vote on the last one, correct? Okay, good. Moving on to item B3, professional services contract, Riverside Insights. Consideration of a request for the approval of a professional service contract between the East Baton Rouge Parish School Board and Riverside Insights in the amount of $49,425 to provide universal screenings to identify gifted students. Strategic alignment, student achievement, funding source, ESSER 3. Is there a motion? Is it, who made the motion? All right, and there was a second? All right, who's the second? Okay, you got a motion and a second. All right, anyone? Oh, I'm sorry, Madam Secretary. Could you? I didn't hear who said what. Could you please? I didn't get who was the maker. All right, who was the maker? Mr. Godet, were you the maker of the motion? No, Mr. Lewis was the maker of the motion.
And then Chatelain was the second.
All right, and Ms. Chatelain was the second. Y'all give me a hard time on my first day. Come on. All right. Any members of the board wish to comment on this item? All right, Madam President.
Okay, I just wanted to ask the question for the record, Dr. Narcisse. Tell us, what can we expect out of this $49,000?
Yes, let me get Dr. Brandy Williams. Can you come on up? She can also explain to you the process.
Good evening, board members and Superintendent Narcisse. So underrepresentation of gifted students is an issue that is nationwide. It's also an issue statewide, but more specifically here in East Baton Rouge Parish School System. And so what we currently use are nominations or referral method. So that means any parent, any guidance counselor, or teacher can recommend a student. With that current process, what we're looking at is universally screening, which would offer a multidimensional approach to identification of gifted students. We're looking at using the COGAT, which is an acronym for Cognitive Abilities Testing, and we would be able to select a specific grade level, and we would be able to administer a test to a large group of students at one time. The grade level that we're looking at is second grade, based off of research and passage rates. And with that, to put things in perspective, we last year screened 185 second grade students, and we have 3,000. So there was not a lot of nominations for those students. Further, 28 of those students, only 28 were from Mid-City and North Baton Rouge. So underrepresentation is an issue, but even more so, minority students are represented even less. And so what we would do with the universal screening, we would administer it this spring. We would obtain parent permission, and we would screen 3,000 students. And after that, see who qualifies and has an opportunity to be placed into our program.
Thank you, and that's what I was hoping to hear you say. Number one, because I know that, as Mr. Lannis has mentioned, I think I have about 13 to 14 schools in my district. And so the idea of being able to say that all 3,000 second graders would be able to be tested is quite amazing. The other side to that is I had my son tested when he was in pre-K. And of course, when he was in pre-K, kids don't always comply. I think when my sister took him for the testing, because I was in the classroom at the time, she had test prepped him and went through, all the different practice items with him. And because of his age, when he got in the room to take the test, he decided he wasn't going to take it because he was tired of doing those things. So just to think about age second grade, the students are older and they may even understand the significance of the test. So I'm super excited about that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, President Powell-Lewis. Mr. Goday.
Yes, thank you. One of the other things I want to highlight is that gifted and talented comes with a multiplier on the MFP, and I believe it's 1.6. Is that the right number? It's about, I'm sorry?
It's an extra
An extra
$1,000.
$1,000, okay. So it's an extra $1,000 for a gifted and talented student. And so not only will this open up opportunities for more children, it will also provide more funds to be able to use because they have smaller classrooms and things like that. So the funding comes with the student as we go through this. And, this is one of those things that I think is we've been long overdue in doing this. I applaud the superintendent in finally bringing this to the forefront of our thing. And this is the kind of thing that in 4, 5, or 6 years, those are the kinds of things that are going to have the impact on our district scores, on our school scores, and things like that. It's not going to impact next year. It probably won't impact the year after that. But over time, those are the kind of systemic changes that we've been making over the last couple of years that will bring about long-term change and long-term improvement. So if you're looking for a silver bullet, this isn't a silver bullet. This is a long-term muscle booster to get you to the point that you need to be in 5 years. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Goday. Next up, Ms. Stewart.
Yes, you mentioned that it will be able to test about 3,000 second graders. What's the total number of second graders that we have in the district?
3,000.
So all of them will be tested. This will give an opportunity for all of the second graders in the entire district to be tested?
Absolutely.
Okay, so that's what I wanted to know. What was the total number, and will it cover all of the students?
Yes, everyone who, where we get parent permission, we will screen them.
Okay, and so that's all I want to know, is it covering all of them?
Yes.
Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Stewart. Mr. Lewis.
Will you test only second graders? Is there any opportunity that a third grader may be tested, or because we all know that all second graders aren't on the same level? Because the kid may be in the second grade, but he may should still maybe be in kindergarten. They don't all, their little brains cognitively, they don't all hit the magic bullet at second grade.
So we will still offer nominations.
Still testing?
Yes, for pre-K to 12, all those students can still be nominated to be screened.
Okay.
So that will continue.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Coach Lewis. I've entered into the queue. Superintendent, I see this as a software or an online kind of thing. Presumably, we've got a lot of support that we offer. This isn't just something that parents will go log in at home or something like that. Could you or staff talk about how this will actually work and what kind of resources we're devoting to make sure that this is actually used by the parents?
Yeah, I'd love to give that answer, but Dr. Williams.
Yes, so currently with the nominations, we do the screening in-house, or either a guidance counselor does the screening, or one of our gifted site coordinators. So it's done at the school level. It's graded or assessed with pencil and paper. This program will be an online program. So my office will actually, we're going to come up with a schedule and go into each school, work with the principals to go in and administer this test to students all at one time. And because it's done on the computer, it's available in 7 languages, which is great for our ESL students. And the results come in expeditiously. So we will work with Riverside Insights to get those results and then offer placement to the students that may qualify or offer a further evaluation of IQ and academic evaluation.
Thank you, Dr. Williams. So your staff, the assessment will be administered online within the school, kind of overseen by your staff, kind of rotating through the schools through whatever time period it is.
Yes, and our office and our gifted site coordinators, we're going to work together to go in as a team to administer the test to students.
Thank you. It sounds like a fantastic and very long overdue program. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Ms. Chatelaine.
Thank you. Thank you for speaking with me about this yesterday. I just kind of wanted to point out to the board that this is a one-time thing this year. It's being funded, and correct me if I'm wrong, by ESSER, which is great. So just think about this when we are budgeting for next year, that this would have to be budgeted, I believe. So I do believe it could be a great long-term thing, but every child in the future would need this opportunity, so it would need to be funded from general fund. So just something to keep in mind as we talk about budget for next year.
And if I could bring up, Board Member Shanley, you're correct. We've actually have been talking for a long-term plan for this. So once the ESSER dollars in, we've already talked to federal programs about looking about putting these funds in Title I funding, which we get from the state, which will help us. It's easier now because the ESSER dollars are there, but our goal is to shift that into title funding. So now we'll be able to screen every child. So so access is not an issue for kids across the system.
Great.
Seeing no further names in the queue from the board, we'll turn to comments from the public. Dr. James Finney.
I think this is an awesome way to spend money. I'm glad to hear we'll screen all the members of that class, and I look forward to seeing the data. So, thank you.
Contract Dr. Finney is in favor of.
We should take that comment and run. So.
Mark the record books, folks. Sorry. Ms. Tanya McMillan.
Tanya McMillan, and I too am in favor of this contract because they're going to screen all of the second graders. And if I can tell you guys a story, I was in the salon one day and I had a little boy that was with his mom, and he was bouncing around in the dryer chairs and wouldn't sit down. And his mama was telling me, you know, girl, they say my baby has this and they want to put him on adult high blood pressure medicine to calm him down. He was like 5 years old. And I looked at him and I said, sit down. And he sat down and he was quiet. And I said, baby, that child is gifted. There's nothing wrong with your child. Sure enough, she got him screened, and he's so smart. And this child, he's probably graduating high school now, but sometimes we have unconscious biases, you know? Sometimes we just have misunderstandings or a lack of understanding, especially of people that are different from us. So you see someone who might be a little rambunctious and who might be a little outspoken, who might be very opinionated. And while somebody else might see that child and think that child is rude or disrespectful, that child might be one of our future leaders because they are rambunctious, because they are bold enough to speak. So I think that this is awesome that we're going to get to screen all children, and we can pick those kids and save those children who may be able to learn at a faster pace, and every child has a brain that's a sponge. But some kids can absorb things a little faster. So I think it'll be awesome that we're going to be able to to screen those children and get them out into classrooms that are better suited for them and better environments for them. So I support this too. Thank you.
All right. That's all the cards I have for public comment. Returning to the board. Are there anybody want to join the queue on the board? Hearing none, let's call for the vote. Madam Secretary?
Please vote. The motion carries.
Thank you very much. Turn to item B4, Classroom Renovation Project, Baton Rouge Flame. Consideration of a request for the authorization to design, advertise, accept, and award the contract for construction to the lowest bidder and complete construction of the classroom innovations at BR Flame for approximately $2 million, I presume that's dollars, and provide for related matters, strategic alignment, student achievement, funding source, general fund. Do I hear a motion? Moved by Mr. Lannis, seconded by Ms. Stewart. And the floor is open for comments. Anybody in the queue? All right. No one in the queue, so we will turn to public comments. Dr. James Finney.
This is a horrible use of public money, not well defended or supported by the backup. My understanding is there are already 4 sections of each grade level. I don't see how renovating the same space is going to somehow make room for 5. And if that weren't bad enough, it doesn't say whether you're adding another Spanish, another French, or another Mandarin, nor does it indicate whether there are people on the waiting list. So, does it need to happen at all? Probably not. Is it time for a new immersion school somewhere else? Maybe. But besides that, that's $2 million of general fund money. Does it mention in the backup how many $1 million the facilities department has available from which you'd be taking that $2 million? Just today I saw posts on Facebook about McKinley Middle, which isn't terribly old, leaking like a sieve every time it rains. I saw posts, throughout the last couple months from teachers that are having to buy their own heaters because their classrooms are too cold to tolerate being in there. Let's address things that need to be done with facilities before we start making all these magnets bigger and bigger and bigger. And by the way, you should go back and revisit the size of the new facility for BRCBPA because you're making it bigger than it should be. That's a problem. I relish the days that I go to school when public school is not in session because my commute's about 20 minutes shorter. Because you have people going all over the town to go to school instead of walking to their neighborhood school and being served. You need some magnets. You don't need to turn every school into a magnet and have a 40,000 student Chinese fire drill every morning because everybody's going from here to there instead of being served in the neighborhood. Put your foot down, make sure this $2 million gets spent where it needs to be spent, and this is not it. Thank you.
Ms. Tanya McMillan.
Tanya McMillan, proud parent of a child at Baton Rouge Flame. My baby is definitely thriving there. We have new leadership, which is awesome, and our culture at our school has totally changed and it's for the better. It's really, really good, but our playground and our fields are still the same. In spite my 9-year-old getting up here a couple of months ago and letting y'all know about the glass on in the fields. There's still glass in the fields. So we got $2 million to put in new classrooms at Flame, but we don't have $20,000 to go clean up those fields and put some playground equipment out there for those children that are already there. That's a huge liability. Got kids playing on glass. And do we know where the glass is coming from? Is it coming from the landfill that the school was built on years ago? Or is it coming from over the fence? Because the school was in Valley Park. Is it coming from over the fence or from the ground? Either way it goes, it needs to go. So if we got $2 million to build new classrooms, can we just get a percentage of that to clean up the grounds for the kids that are already there? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. McGillen. Seeing no further cards from the public, we're turning to the board. Mr. Lannis.
Yes, and I'm sure me and Madam President may say the same thing. I was just going to suggest to board leadership, if you all could please reach out to Mr. Mander Morales and Hess to see could they do more of an assessment whenever they're cutting the grass and whenever they're walking the grounds to ensure that there's no hazardous materials, not just glass, but anything that could be deemed hazardous for kids or for any of our employees. I just get it to you all.
Thank you very much. President Powell-Lewis. Okay. Mr. Morales, could you address that last point from Mr. Lannis, please? Thank you.
So the playground stuff, there was some mulch missing when I first got to the district. It was low on mulch. We added fall protection to it. Hess had actually did a sweep of the entire campus when we got the report last time, which we went through and cleaned up a bunch of stuff. So I'll have them go back through it again and see, but there shouldn't be anything of danger or debris at this time that I'm aware of. So this is the first I hear, but we'll follow up and check on it.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much. And I think Ms. McMillan makes a good point. If in fact somehow something is leaching through from the landfill below, then we need to be aware of that. Whereas if it's broken bottles next to the fence, then that's somebody throwing them over. So I appreciate you looking at that. Ms. Stewart.
I noticed the principal is here. If you don't mind, can I have her come forward? Because if there is some issues or something that has been brought to the staff or principal attention about hazardous or glass, she would know. So thank you.
Good evening. I'm Tony Morgan, the principal at Flame. I can kind of speak to that a little bit as well. We do have our custodial staff to walk the playground area every morning. We are still finding particles of glass periodically, but we try to get those up every day as they're walking. We have a fenced-in area in particular where our 3-year-olds are allowed to play. And so that is our main focus of our area in the mornings, to make sure that those 3-year-olds are playing in a safe area, because there's not a lot of equipment out there for them. But they then go back and walk the bigger sides of the playground just to ensure that there's some safety. Might they miss some every now and then? They might, but we do walk it every day.
Thank you.
Interview myself again, just to reiterate, if in fact we're checking the facility every day and we're still finding glass periodically, that glass is coming from somewhere, right? And either is coming from intruders coming onto campus, and leaving debris and dangerous substances there, or it's leaching from the landfill, or somebody's tossing it over the fence. And so in addition to checking, which obviously you're doing that, I would encourage us to try to see if we can figure out what the root cause of that is so we can address that. Thank you. Any further comments from the board? And then let's call for the vote, Madam Secretary.
Please vote. Motion carries.
Thank you. Moving on to item B5, RFP Medical Oversight School Nursing. I understand that there's needs to be a change to the actual language of the recommended action. Mr. Shamlin?
Yes, sir. Just a slight change, and you just indicated it should read consideration of a request for the authorization of superintendent and staff to issue a request for proposals to provide medical oversight of school nurses. And then the rest of it reads as it should. Just wanted to make sure that's noted for the record.
So that's consideration of request for the authorization of the superintendent and staff to issue a request for proposals to provide medical oversight of school nurses and to provide for related matters, strategic alignment, operational excellence, funding source, general fund. Is there a motion? Moved by Mr. Gode, second by Mr. Lewis. See, anyone in the queue? Mr. Shamlin, we've already heard from you. Ms. Stewart.
I want to ask for an explanation, or I guess a breakdown, because my understanding is that we provided oversight to the nurses. This is something that I asked and brought about a while back when I was asking about the number of nurses that we had for the district and the oversight for those. So can you come, Ms. Dupree, assist with that information? Because what this is saying is that it's providing oversight. Can you tell me about the existing oversight?
Our existing contract is with Our Lady of the Lake Health Centers and Schools. That contract expires at the end of this fiscal year. So I'd let Dr. Narcisse, if you would like to talk about our vision, or would you like me to talk about it? So what we're looking at is we've had a contract with our outside group for over 20 years. They've done a great partnership, but at this time we're looking at bringing the nurses back into the school district so that we could have more control over the services provided. But in order to do that, you must have a medical entity providing the oversight to the nurses. You must have a physician or a physician's group or a hospital providing that. So the RFP is for that medical oversight for the nursing program.
So to bring that back into the district for us to provide that oversight, tell me the benefit of, the more benefit that would be versus the contract with LSU, LSU?
With Our Lady of the Lake.
That we previously had.
It would provide us where we're the only school district in the state of Louisiana that does not have nurses at the school site. Right. We would be able to provide the nurses and direct what they're doing at the school. We would be directly providing, there would be our employees. And our goal is to have more nurses at less sites. So what that means is, instead of having a nurse covering 6, 7 schools, we would like a nurse to cover 1 to 2 schools. So that is our goal.
Point of information, Ms. Dupree. So are you saying that the nurses will just be floating between schools?
They're already floating between the schools.
Okay.
But this would be less schools.
Less floating.
Yes, ma'am. Okay. Thank you. That's all.
And that's the information I wanted you to. Thank you, Ms. Dupree.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Stewart. Mr. Lewis.
Ms. Stewart basically asked the same question I was going to ask. I'm good. Ms. Stewart asked the same question.
Okay, thank you. Any more comments from the board? All right, seeing none, turn to members of the public. Dr. James Finney.
So we can double the number of proposals from the administration that I support, because I love the idea of hiring nurses as employees rather than as contractors. And if this is what it takes to make that operate smoothly, it's a great idea. Thanks.
Thank you. Seeing no other cards.
The second comment to run. Thank you.
Seeing no other cards. Are there any more comments from the board? Coming back to the board. All right, Madam Secretary, let's call for the vote.
Please vote. Motion carries.
Thank you. Before I turn, we need to, the announcement of meetings. Do I do that or somebody else? Okay. Announcement of meetings. Next meeting is a regular meeting to be held on January 25th, 2024 at 5 p.m. in the Central Office Boardroom, and then the Committee of the Whole to be held on February 8th, 2024 at 5 p.m. in the Central Office Boardroom. Before I ask Mr. Gode for his motion, I'd like to commend the superintendent, staff, and the folks at the Foundation for EBR Schools on their successful ELF program over the holidays, which were to benefit families in transition. Thanks to some very generous donations by some folks who wish to be anonymous, as well as our contractor CSRS Tillage, we were able to provide gifts to 233 students who are in transition. 233 students who are all desperately in need of gifts. So thank you to the foundation staff, the superintendent, and all of the East Baton Rouge staff, particularly in the communications office and the community liaisons office, who did some incredible work to make that happen. Thank you. And Dr. Narcisse.
Thank you, Vice President Martin. I just also wanted to credit our staff, the C-Tech Workforce Development Team. They had, today they had the Workforce Development Fair, where they had over 200 students that came, and multiple companies across the community to help with internships and those things. We put pictures up and everything, but wanted to thank them. As you know, we've been pushing hard for kids to get internships with companies, and it was really great to see a packed room there. So I just wanted to give credit to that.
Thank you. Mr. Godet? Mr. Lewis? We are adjourned.
We are adjourned. With